List of characters: Anand Mai, Eodhyang Princess, daughter of Emperor Dilipar _Arishtanemi, Meluhan Militia, protectors of Mount Mandar and the road to Itayavati, the chief of medicine at Meluha _Bhadra, A.K. Veerbhadra, a childhood friend and a confidant of Shiva. He is named Veerbhadra as he single-handedly fought a tiger. Bajarath, Prince of Eodhyang, son of Emperor Dilipar _Bharat, an ancient emperor of the Chandravanshi dynasty married to a Surivanshi Brihaspati, chief Meluhan scientist, belonged to the Swan tribe of Brahmins. Brahma, a great scientist from the very ancient past. Brahmanayak, father of Daksha, previous emperor of Meluha Chinadwai, governor of Kashmir, based at Srinagar. Chitrangid, one Entatian executive of the immigrants camp in Srinagar. Daksha, emperor of the Surivanshi Empire of Meluha, married to Virini and father of Sati. Dilipar, emperor of Swadweep, king of Eodhyang and chief of the Chandravanshis Drapaku, a resident of Kotwa in Meluha Jatta, an official in Hariupa Juleshwar, governor of Karakarpar in Meluha Kanakala, the prime minister of Meluha. She is in charge of administrative, revenue and protocol matters. Kritika, close friend of, and attendant to Sati. Manu, founder of the Vedic way of life, born many millennia ago in Sangan Tamil region. Nandi, a captain in the Meluhan army. Paninai, associate scientist of Brihaspati at Mount Mandar Parvatshwar, head of Meluhan armed forces, in charge of army, navy, special forces and police. Ram, the seventh Vishnu, who lived many centuries ago. He established the empire of Meluha Rudra, the earlier Mahadev, the destroyer of evil, who lived some millennia ago. Sati, daughter of King Daksha and Queen Virini, the royal princess of Meluha Satyadwaj, grandfather of Patviteshwar Shiva, the chief of the Gunna tribe. Hails from Tibet, later called Neelkanth, the savior of the land Tiarak, a Karakarpar resident. The Hudidnaga, a mysterious leader of the Nagas Virini, queen of Meluha, wife of Daksha and mother of Sati. Vishwadyamna, a close associate of the Hudidnaga figure. Yakhaya, chief of the Pakrati tribe, opponent of the Gunnas from Tibet. Chapter 1 He has come. 1900 BC, Mansarovar Lake, at the foot of Mount Kailash, Tibet. Shiva gazed at the orange sky. The clouds hovering above Mansarovar had just parted to reveal the setting sun. The brilliant giver of life was calling it a day once again. Shiva had seen just a few sunrises in his 21 years. But the sunset. He tried never to miss the sunset. On any other day, Shiva would have taken in the vista, the sun and the immense lake against the magnificent backdrop of the Himalayas stretching as far back as the eye could see. But not today. He squatted and perched his lithe, muscular body on the narrow ledge extending over the lake. The numerous battle scars on his skin gleamed in the shimmering reflected light of the waters. Shiva remembered well his carefree childhood days. He had perfected the art of throwing pebbles that bounced off the surface of the lake. He still held the record in his tribe for the highest number of bounces, 17. On a normal day, Shiva Md one D have smiled at the memory from a cheerful past that had been overwhelmed by the angst of the present, but today, he tumbled back towards his village without any hint of joy. Bhadra was alert, guarding the main entrance. Shiva gestured with his eyes. Bhadra turned back to find his two backup soldiers dozing against the fence. He cursed and kicked them hard. Shiva tumbled back towards the lake. God bless Bhadra. At least B takes some power. Bilai 5. Shiva brought the chillum made of yak bone to his lips and took in a deep drag. Any other day, the marijuana would have spread its munificence, dulling his troubled mind and letting him find some moments of solace. But not today. He looked to his left, the edge of the lake where the soldiers of the strange foreign visitor were kept under guard. With the lake behind them and 20 of Shiva's own soldiers guarding them, it was impossible for them to mount any surprise attack. They let themselves be disarmed so easily. They aren't like the bloodthirst 5 idiots in our land who are looking for any excuse to fight. The foreigner's words came flooding back to Shiva. Come to our land. It lies beyond the great mountains. Others call it Meluha _ I call it heaven. It is the richest and most powerful empire in India. Indeed, the richest and most powerful in the whole world. Our government has an offer for immigrants. You will be given fertile land and resources for farming. Today, your tribe, the Gunners, fight for survival in this rough, arid land. Meluha offers you a lifestyle beyond your wildest dreams. We ask for nothing in return. Just live in peace, pay your taxes and follow the laws of the land. Shiva mused that he would certainly not be a chief in this new land. Would I miss that so much? His tribe would have to live by the laws of the foreigners. They would have to work every day for a living. That's better * ban fighting every do just to mow Ali. Shiva took another puff from his chillum. As the smoke cleared, he turned to stare at the hut in the center of his village, right next to his own, where the foreigner had been stationed. He had been told that he could sleep there in comfort. In fact, Shiva wanted to keep him hostage. Just in case. WF'd almost month with the Pakratis just so that our village can exist next to the holy lake. They are getting new alliances with new tribes. We can beat the Pakratis, but not other mountain together. By moving to Meluha, we can escape this pointless violence and maybe live a life of comfort. What could possibly be wrong with that? IVO, shouldn't we take this deal? It sounds so damn good. Shiva took one last drag from the chillum before banging it on the rock, letting the ash slip out and rising quickly from his perch. Brushing a few specks of ash from his bare chest, he wiped his hands on his tiger skin skirt, rapidly striding his village. Bhadra and his backup stood to attention as Shiva passed the gate. Shiva frowned and gestured for Bhadra to ease up. Why does he keep forgetting that he has been closest friend since childhood? Becoming the chief, hasn't he really changed anything? He doesn't need to be unnecessary servile in front of others. The huts in Shiva's village were luxurious compared to others in their land. A grown man could actually stand upright in them. The shelter could withstand the harsh mountain winds for nearly 3 years before surrendering to the elements. He flung the empty chillum into his hut as he strode to the hut where the visitor lay sleeping soundly. Either he doesn't realize he is a hostage, or he genuine that good bahana begets good bahusha. Shiva remembered what his uncle, also his guru, used to say. People do what their society rewards them for doing. If the society trust, people will be trusting. Meluha MWT be a trust-G society if it teaches its soldiers to expect the best be strangers. Shiva scratched his shaggy beard as he stared hard at the visitor. He had said his name was Nandi. The Meluhan's massive proportions appeared even more enormous as he sprawled on the floor in his stupor, his immense belly jiggling with every breath. Despite being obese, his skin was taut and toned. His childlike face looked even more indignant as he slept with his mouth half open. Is this the man who will lead me to my destiny? Do I realize the destiny, my uncle Pokaj? Your destiny is much larger than these massive mountains. But to make it come true, you will have to cross these very same massive mountains. 3 do 1 deserve a good derby. People come first. Will they be happy in Meluha? Shiva continued to stare at the sleeping Nandi. Then he heard the sound of a conch shell Pakratis. Positions, screamed Shiva, as he drew his sword. Nandi was up in an instant, drawing a hidden sword from his coat that was kept to the side. They sprinted to the village gates. Following standard protocol, the women started rushing to the village center, carrying their children along. The men ran the other way, swords drawn. Bhadra. Our soldiers at the lake, shouted Shiva as he reached the entrance. Bhadra relayed the orders and the gunner soldiers obeyed instantly. They were surprised to see the Meluhans draw weapons hidden in their coats and rush to the village. The Pakratis were upon them within moments. It was a well-planned ambush by the Pakratis_Duskivers, usually a time when the gunner soldiers took time to thank their gods for a day without battle. The women did their chores by the lakeside. If there was a time of weakness for the formidable gunners, a time when they weren't a fearsome martial clan, but just another mountain tribe trying to survive in a tough, hostile land, this was it. But fate was against the Pakratis yet again. Thanks to the foreign presence, Shiva had ordered the gunners to remain alert. Thus they were forewarned and the Pakratis lost the element of surprise. The presence of the Meluhans was also decisive, turning the tide of the short, brutal battle in favor of the gunners. The Pakratis had to retreat blooded and scarred. Shiva surveyed the damage at the end of the battle. 2 gunner soldiers had succumbed to their injuries. They would be honored as clan heroes. But even worse, the Wanlung had come too late for at least 10 gunner women and children. Their mutilated bodies were found next to the lake. The losses were high. Bastards. They kill ND children when they can't beat W. A livid Shiva called the entire tribe to the center of the village. His mind was made. This land is fit for barbarians. We have fought pointless battles with no end in sight. You know that my uncle tried to make peace, even offering access to the lake shore to the mountain tribes. But these scum mistook our desire for peace as weakness. We all know what followed. The gunners, despite being used to the brutality of regular battle, were shell-shocked by the viciousness of the attack on the women and children. I keep no secrets from all of you are aware of the invitation of the foreigners, continued Shiva, pointing to Nandi and the Meluhans. They fought shoulder to shoulder with us today. They have earned my trust. I want to go with them to Meluha but this cannot be my decision alone. You are our chief, Shiva said. Bhadra. Your decision is our decision. That is the tradition. Not this time, said Shiva, holding out his hand. This will change our lives completely. I believe the change will be for the better. Anything will be better than the pointlessness of the violence we face daily. I have told you what I want to do. But the choice to go or not is yours. Let the gunners speak. This time, I follow you. The gunners were clear about their tradition. This respect for the chief was not just based on convention, but also on Shiva's character. He had led the gunners to their greatest military victories through his genius and sheer personal bravery. They spoke in one voice. Your decision is our decision. It had been 5 days since Shiva had uprooted his tribe. They had camped in a nook at the base of one of the great valleys dotting the route to Meluha. Shiva had organized the camp in 3 concentric circles. The yaks had been tied around the outermost circle, to act as an alarm in case of any intrusion. The men formed an intermediate ring of defenders to repulse any attack, and the women and children were in the innermost circle, just around the fire. The expendables first, defenders second, and the most vulnerable in the inside. Shiva was prepared for the worst. He believed that there would be an ambush. It was only a matter of time. The Pakratis should have been delighted to have access to the prime lands, as well as free occupation of the lake front. But Shiva knew that Yakhaya, the Pakrati chief, would not allow them to leave peacefully. Yakhaya would like nothing better than to become a legend by claiming that he had defeated Shiva's gunners and won the land for the Pakratis. It was precisely this weird tribal logic that Shiva detested. In an atmosphere like this, there was never any hope for peace. Shiva relished the call of battle, reveled in its art. But he also knew that ultimately, the battles in his land were an exercise in futility. He turned to an alert Nandi sitting some distance away. The 25 Meluhan soldiers were seated in an arc around a second camp circle. Why did he pick the Gunas for his invitation to immigrate? Why not the Pakratis? Shiva's thoughts were broken as he saw a shadow move in the distance. He stared hard, but everything was still. Sometimes the light played tricks in this part of the world. Shiva relaxed his stance. And then he saw the shadow again. "To arms!" screamed Shiva. The gunners and Meluhans drew their weapons and took up battle positions as 50 Pakratis charged in. The stupidity of rushing in without any clue struck them hard as they encountered a of panicky animals. The yaks bucked and kicked uncontrollably, injuring many Pakratis before they could even begin their skirmish. A few slipped through. And weapons clashed. A young Pakrati, obviously a novice, charged at Shiva, swinging wildly. Shiva stepped back, avoiding the strike. He brought his sword back up in a smooth arc, inflicting a superficial cut on the Pakrati's chest. The young warrior cursed and swung back, opening his flank. That was all that Shiva needed. He pushed his sword in brutally, cutting through the gut of his enemy. Almost instantly, he pulled the blade out, twisting it as he did, and left the Pakrati to a slow, painful death. Shiva turned around to find a Pakrati ready to strike at gunner. He jumped high and swung from the elevation, slicing neatly through the Pakrati's sword arm, severing it. Meanwhile Bhadra, as adept at the art of battle as Shiva, was fighting 2 Pakratis simultaneously, with a sword in each hand. His hump did not seem to impede his movements as he transferred his weight easily, striking the Pakrati on his left side at his throat. Leaving him to die slowly, he swung with his right hand, cutting across the face of the other soldier, gouging his eye out as the soldier fell. Bhadra brought his left sword down brutally, ending the suffering quickly for this hapless enemy. The battle at the Meluhan end of the camp was very different. They were exceptionally well-trained soldiers. But they were not vicious. They were following rules, avoiding killing, as far as possible. Outnumbered and led poorly, it was but a short while before the Pakratis were beaten. Almost half of them lay dead and the rest were on their knees, begging for mercy. One of them was Yakhaya, his shoulder cut deep by Nandi, debilitating the movement of his sword. Bhadra stood behind the Pakrati chief, his sword raised high, ready to strike. "Shiva, quick and easy or slow and painful?" "Sir," intervened Nandi, before Shiva could speak. Shiva turned towards the Meluhan. "This is wrong. They are begging for mercy. Killing them is against the rules of war." "You don't know the Pakratis," said Shiva. "They are brutal. They will keep attacking us even if there is nothing to gain. This has to end. Once and for all. It is already ending. You are not going to live here anymore. You will soon be in Meluha." Shiva silent. Nandi continued, "How you want to end this is up to you. More of the same or different?" Bhadra looked at Shiva. "Waiting. You can show the Pakratis that you are better," said Nandi. Shiva turned towards the horizon, seeing the massive mountains' destiny. Chance of a better life. He turned back to Bhadra. "Disarm them. Take all their provisions. Release them. If the Pakratis are mad enough to go back to their village, Remi, and come back, we would be long gone." A shocked Bhadra stared at Shiva. But immediately started implementing the order. Nandi gazed at Shiva with hope. There was but one thought that reverberated through his mind. Shiva has the heart. He has the potential. Please, let it be him. I to you Lord Ram, let it be. Shiva walked back to the young soldier he had stabbed. He lay writhing on the ground, face contorted in pain, even as blood oozed slowly out of his guts. For the first time in his life, Shilpa felt pity for a Pakrati. He drew out his sword and ended the young soldier's suffering. After marching continuously for 4 weeks, the caravan of invited immigrants crested the final mountain to reach the outskirts of Srinagar, the capital of the Valley of Kashmir. Nandi had talked excitedly about the glories of his perfect land. Shiva had prepared himself to see some incredible sights, which he could not have imagined in his simple homeland. But nothing could have primed him for the sheer spectacle of what certainly was paradise. Meluha. The land of Puz life. The mighty Jhelum River, a roaring tigress in the mountains, slowed down to the rhythm of a languorous cow as she entered the valley. She caressed the heavenly land of Kashmir, meandering her way into the immense Dal Lake. Further down, she broke away from the lake, continuing her journey the sea. The vast valley was covered by a lush green canvas of grass. On it was painted the masterpiece that was Kashmir. Rows upon rows of flowers arrayed all of God's colors, their brilliance broken only by the soaring chinar trees, offering a majestic, yet warm Kashmiri welcome. The melodious singing of the birds calmed the exhausted ears of Shiva's tribe, accustomed only to the rude howling of icy mountain winds. If this is the border province, how perfect must the rest of the country be? Whispered Shiva in awe. The Dal Lake was the site of an ancient army camp of the Meluhans. Upon the western banks of the lake, by the side of the Jhelum, lay the frontier town that had grown beyond its simple encampments into the Grand Srinagar. Literally, the Repectate city Srinagar had been raised upon a massive platform of almost 100 hectares. The platform, built of earth, towered almost 5 meters high. On top of the platform were the city walls, which were another 20 meters high and 4 meters thick. The simplicity and brilliance of building an entire city on a platform astounded the gunners. It was a strong protection against enemies who would have to fight their way up a fort wall which was essentially solid ground. The platform served another vital purpose: it raised the ground level of the city, an extremely effective strategy against the recurrent floods in this land. Inside the fort walls, the city was divided into blocks by roads laid out in a neat grid pattern. It had specially constructed market areas, temples, gardens, meeting halls and everything else that would be required for sophisticated urban living. All the houses looked like simple multiple-storied block structures from the outside. The only way to differentiate a rich man's house from that of a poor man's was that his block would be bigger. In contrast to the extravagant natural landscape of Kashmir, the city of Srinagar itself was painted only in restrained greys, blues and whites. The entire city was a picture of cleanliness, order and sobriety. Nearly 20,000 souls called Srinagar their home. Now an additional 200 had just arrived from Mount Kailash. And their leader felt a lightness of being he hadn't experienced since that terrible day, many years ago. I have escaped. One can make a new beginning. I can facet. The caravan traveled to the immigrant camp outside Srinagar. The camp had been built on a separate platform on the southern side of the city. Nandi led Shilpa and his tribe to the foreigner's office, which was placed just outside the camp. Nandi requested Shiva to wait outside as he went into the office. He soon returned, accompanied by a young official. The official gave a practiced smile and folded his hands in a formal namaste. Welcome to Meluha. I am Chitrangid. I will be your orientation executive. Think of me as your single point of contact for all issues whilst you are here. I believe your leader's name is Shiva. Will he step up, please? Shiva took a step forward. I am Shiva. Excellent, said Chitrangid. Would you be so kind as to follow me to the registration desk, please? You will be registered as the caretaker of your tribe. Any communication that concerns them will go through you. Since you are the designated leader, the implementation of all directives within your tribe would be your responsibility. Nandi cut into Chitrangida's officious speech to tell Shiva, Sir, if you will just excuse me, I will go to the immigrant camp quarters and arrange the temporary living arrangements for your tribe. Shiva noticed that Chitrangida's ever-beaming face had lost its smile for a fraction of a second as Nandi interrupted his flow. But he recovered quickly and the smile returned to his face once again. Shiva turned and looked at Nandi. Of course, you may. You don't need to take my permission, Nandi said Shiva. But in return, you have to promise me something, my friend. Of course, sir, replied Nandi, bowing slightly. Call me Shiva. Not sir, grinned Shiva. I am your friend. Not per chief. A surprised Nandi looked up, bowed again and said, Yes sir. I mean, yes, Shiva. Shiva turned back to Chitrangid, whose smile for some reason appeared more genuine now. He said, "Well Shiva, if you will follow me to the registration desk, we will complete the formalities quickly." The newly registered tribe reached the residential quarters in the immigration camp. To see Nandi waiting outside the main gates, he led them in. The roads of the camp were just like those of Srinagar. They were laid out in a neat north-south and east-west grid. The carefully paved footpaths contrasted sharply with the dirt tracks in Shiva's own land. He noticed something strange about the road though. "Nandi, what are those differently colored stones running through the center of the road?" asked Shilpa. "They cover the underground drains, Shiva. The drains take out all the wastewater of the camp. It ensures that the camp remains clean and hygienic." Shiva marveled at the almost obsessively meticulous planning of the Meluhans. The gunners reached the large building that had been assigned to them. For the umpteenth time, they thanked the wisdom of their leader in deciding to come to Meluha. The three-storied building had comfortable, separate living quarters for each family. Each room had luxurious furniture including a highly polished copper plate on the wall in which they could see their reflection. The rooms had clean linen bed sheets, towels and even some clothes. Feeling the cloth, a bewildered Shiva asked, "Is this material?" Chitrangid replied enthusiastically, "Rs cotton, Shiva. The plant is grown in our lands and fashioned into the cloth that you hold." There was a broad picture window on each wall to let in the light and the warmth of the sun. Notches on each wall supported a metal rod with a controlled flame on top for lighting. Each room had an attached bathroom with a sloping floor that enabled the water to flow naturally to a hole which drained it out. At the right end of each bathroom was a paved basin on the ground which culminated in a large hole. The purpose of this contraption was a mystery to the tribe. The side walls had some kind of device, which when turned, allowed water to flow through. "Magic," whispered Bhadra's mother. Beside the main door of the building was an attached house. A doctor and her nurses walked out of the house to greet Shiva. The doctor, a petite, wheat-skinned woman, was dressed in a simple white cloth tied around her waist and legs in a style the Meluhans called dhoti. A smaller white cloth was tied as a blouse around her chest while another cloth called an angwastram was draped over her shoulders. The center of her forehead into white dot. Her head had been shaved clean except for a knotted tuft of hair at the back, called a shoti. A loose string called ajanor was tied from her left shoulder across her torso down to the right side. Nandi was genuinely startled at seeing her. With a reverential namast, he said, "Ladeutvati. I didn't expect a doctor of your stature here." Ayan, Kati looked at Nandi with a smile and a polite namast. "I strongly believe in the field work experience program, Captain. My team follows it strictly. However, I am terribly sorry but I don't recognize you. Have we met before?" "My name is Captain Nandi," my lady answered Nandi. "We haven't met but who doesn't know you, the greatest doctor in the land." "Thank you," Captain Nandi said, visibly embarrassed. But I think you exaggerate. There are many far superior to me." Coming quickly towards Shiva, Autvati continued, "Welcome to Meluha IMMORTALS, your designated doctor. My nurses and I will be at your assistance for the time that you are in these quarters." Hearing no reaction from Shiva, Chitrangid said in his most earnest voice, "These are just temporary quarters, Shiva. The actual houses that will be allocated to your tribe will be much more comfortable. You have to stay here only for the period of the quarantine, which will not last more than 7 days. Oh no, my friend. The quarters are more than comfortable. They are beyond anything that we could have imagined." "What say Morsi?" grinned Shiva at Bhadra's mother, before coming back to Chitrangid with a frown. "But why the quarantine?" Nandi cut in. "Shiva, the quarantine is just a precaution. We don't have too many diseases in Meluha. Sometimes, immigrants may come in with new diseases. During this 7-day period, the doctors will observe and cure you of any such ailments. And one of the guidelines that you have to follow in order to control diseases is to maintain strict hygiene standards, said Ayurvedi_Shiva grimaced at Nandi and whispered, hygiene standards. Nandi's forehead crinkled into an apologetic frown while his hands gently advised acquiescence. He mumbled, please go along with it, Shiva. It is just one of those things that we have to do in Meluha. Lady Ayurvedi is considered the best doctor in the land. If you are free right now, I can give you your instructions, said Ayurvedi_. I am free right now, said Shiva with a straight face. But I may have to charge you later. Bhadra giggled softly, while Ayurvedi stared at Shiva with a blank face, clearly not amused at the pun. I'm sure I don't understand what you're trying to say, replied Ayurvedi frostily. Without further ado, let's begin with the ablutionary ritual. Ayan. Catty walked into the guest house, muttering under her breath, these uncouth immigrants. Shiva raised his eyebrows towards Bhadra, grinning impishly. Late in the evening, after a hearty meal, all the gunners were served a medicinal drink in their RCH3MS_yuck, grimaced Bhadra, his face contorted. This tastes like yak's PSS. How do you know what yak's piss tastes like, laughed Shiva, as he slapped his friend hard on the back. Now go to your room. I need to sleep. Have you seen the beds? I think this is going to be the best sleep of my life. I have seen the bed, damn it, grinned Shiva. Now I want to experience it. Get out. Bhadra left Shiva's room, laughing loudly. He wasn't the only one excited by the unnaturally soft beds. The entire tribe had rushed to their rooms for what they anticipated would be the most comfortable sleep of their lives. They were in for a surprise. Shiva tossed and turned on his bed constantly. He was wearing an orange-colored dhoti. The tiger skin had been taken away to be washed, for hygiene reasons. His cotton angvastram was lying on a low chair by the wall. A half-lit chillum lay forlorn on the side table. This cursed bed is too soft. Impossible to sleep on. Shiva yanked the bed sheet off the mattress, tossed it on the floor and lay down. This was a little better. Sleep was stealthily creeping in on him. But not as strongly as at home. He missed the rough cold floor of his own hut. He missed the shrill winds of Mount Kailash, which broke through the most determined efforts to ignore them. He missed the comforting stench of his tiger skin. No doubt, his current surrounds were comfortable, but they were unfamiliar and alien. As usual, it was his instincts which brought up the truth, it's not the room. It's you. It then that Shiva noticed that he was sweating. Despite the cool breeze, he was sweating profusely. The room appeared to be spinning lightly. He felt as if his body was being drawn out of itself. His frost-bitten right toe felt as if it was on fire. His battle-scarred left knee seemed to be getting stretched. His tired and aching muscles felt as if a great hand was remolding them. His shoulder bone, dislocated in days past and never completely healed, appeared to be ripping the muscles aside so as to re-engineer the joint. The muscles in tum seemed to be giving way to the bones to do their breathing was an effort. He opened his mouth to help his lungs along. But not enough air flowed in. Shiva concentrated with all his might, opened his mouth wide and sucked in as much air as he could. The curtains by the side of the window rustled as a kindly wind rushed in. With the sudden gush of air, Shiva's body relaxed just a bit. And then the battle began again. He focused and willed giant gasps of air into his hungry body. Knock. Knock. The light tapping on the door alerted Shiva. He was disoriented for a moment. Still breathing hard. His shoulder twitching. The familiar pain was missing. He looked down at his knee. It didn't hurt anymore. The scar had vanished. Still gasping for breath. He looked down at his toe. Whole and complete now. He bent to check it. A cracking sound reverberated through the room as his toe made its first movement. Years. still breathing hard. There was also an unfamiliar tingling coldness in his neck, very cold. Knock. Knock. A little more insistent now. A wildered Shiva staggered to his feet, pulled the angvastram around his neck for warmth and opened the door. The darkness veiled his face, but Shiva could still recognize Bhadra. He whispered in a panic-stricken voice, "Shiva, I'm sorry to disturb you so late. But my mother has suddenly developed a very high fever. What should I do?" Shiva instinctively touched Bhadra's forehead. "You too have a fever, Bhadra. Go to your room. I will get the doctor." As Shiva raced down the corridor towards the steps, he encountered many more doors opening with the now familiar message. "Sudden fever. Help." Shiva sprinted down the steps to the attached building where the doctors were housed. He knocked hard on the door. Ayurvedi opened it immediately, as if she was expecting him. Shiva spoke calmly. "Ayurvedi, almost my entire tribe has suddenly fallen ill. Please come fast, they need help." Ayan, Kati touched Shiva's forehead. "You don't have a fever." Shiva shook his head. "No, Ayan," Kati frowned, clearly surprised. She tummed and ordered her nurses, "Come on. I's begun." "Please go." As Ayurvedi and her nurses rushed into the building, Chitrangid appeared out of nowhere. He asked Shiva, "What happened?" "I don't know. Practically everybody in my tribe suddenly fell ill." "You two are perspiring heavily." "Don't worry. I don't have fever. Look, I'm going back into the building. I want to see how my people are doing." Chitrangid nodded, adding, "I'll call Nandi." As Chitrangid sped in search of Nandi, Shiva ran into the building. He was surprised the moment he entered. All the torches in the building had been lit. The nurses were going from room to room, methodically administering medicines and advising the scared patients on what they should do. A scribe walked along with each nurse, meticulously noting the details of each patient on a palm leaf booklet. The Meluhans were clearly prepared for such an eventuality. Ayurvedi stood at the end of the corridor, her hands on her hips. Like a general supervising her superbly trained and efficient troops. Shiva rushed up to her and asked, "What about the second and third floor?" "Ayan," Kati answered without tumming to him. "Nurses have already reached every RCH3M in the building. I will go up to supervise. Once the situation on this floor has stabilized, we'll cover all the patients in the next half hour." "You people are incredibly efficient, but I pray that everyone will be okay," said a worried Shiva. "Ayan," Kati tummed to look at Shiva. Her eyebrows were raised slightly and a hint of a smile hovered on her serious face. "Don't worry. We're Meluhans _ we are capable of handling any situation. Everybody will be fine. Is there anything I can do to help?" "Yes. Please go and bathe." "What?" "Please go have a bath. Right now," said Ayurvedi as she tummed back to look at her team. "Everybody, please remember that all children below the age of 15 must be tonsured. Mastrak, please go up and start the secondary medicines. I'll be there in 5 minutes." "Yes, my lady," said a young man as he hurried up the steps carrying a large cloth bag. "You're still here?" asked Ayurvedi as she noticed that Shiva hadn't left. Shiva spoke softly, controlling his rising anger, "What difference will my bathing make? My people are in trouble. I want to help. I don't have the time or the patience to argue with you. You will go and bathe right now," said Ayurvedi, clearly not trying to control her rising temper. Shiva glared at Ayurvedi as he made a heroic effort to rem in the curses that wanted to leap out of his mouth. His clenched fists wanted to have an argument of their own with Ayurvedi but she was a woman. Ayurvedi too glared back at Shiva. She was used to being obeyed. She was a doctor. If she told a patient to do something, she expected it to be done without question. But in her long years of experience she had also seen a few patients like Shiva, especially from the nobility. Such patients had to be reasoned with. Not instructed yet, this was a simple immigrant. Not some nobleman. Controlling herself with great effort, Ayurvati said, Shiva, you are a sperm _ if you don't wash it off, it will kill you. Please trust me. You cannot be of any help to your tribe if you are dead. Chitrangid banged loudly on the doosit. A bleary-eyed Nandi woke up cursing. He wrenched the door open and growled, this better be important. Come quickly. Shiva's tribe has fallen ill 3 already. But this is only the first night, exclaimed Nandi. Picking up his Angvastram he said, let's go. The bathroom seemed like a strange place for a bath. Shiva was used to splashing about in the chilly Mansarovar lake for his bi-monthly ablutions. The bathroom felt strangely constricted. He thumbed the magical device on the wall to increase the flow of water. He used the strange cake-like substance that the Meluhans said was a soap to rub the body clean. Ayurvati had been very clear. The soap had to be used. He thumbed the water off and picked up the towel. As he rubbed himself vigorously, the mystifying development he had ignored in the past few hours came flooding back. His shoulder felt better than new. His surprised gaze fell to his knee. No pain, no scar. He then looked incredulously at his completely healed toe. And then he realized that it wasn't just the injured parts, but his entire body felt new, rejuvenated and stronger than ever. His neck, though, still felt intolerably cold. What the dzal is going on? He stepped out of the bathroom and quickly wore a new dhoti. Again, Ayurvati's strict instructions were not to wear his old clothes which were infected by his toxic perspiration. As he was wrapping the Angvastram around his neck for some warmth, there was a knock on the door. It was Ayurvati_Shiva, can you open the door please? I just want to check whether you are all right. Shiva opened the door. Ayurvati stepped in and checked Shiva's temperature, it was normal. Ayurvati nodded slightly and said, you seem to be healthy. And your tribe is recovering quickly as well. The trouble has passed. Shiva smiled gratefully, thanks to the skills and efficiency of your team. I am truly sorry for arguing with you earlier. It was unnecessary. I know you meant well. Ayan, Kati looked up from her palm leaf booklet, a slight smile and a raised eyebrow. Being polite, are we? I'm not all that rude, you know, grinned Shiva. You people are just too supercilious. Ayan, Kati suddenly stopped listening as she stared at Shiva with a stunned look on her face. How had she not noticed it before? She had never believed in the legend. Was she going to be the first one to see it come true? Pointing weakly with her hands she mumbled, why have you covered your neck? I's very cold for some reason. Is it something to be worried about? Asked Shiva as he pulled the Angvastram off. A cry resounded loudly through the silent room as Ayurvati staggered back, her hand covered her mouth in shock while the palm leaves scattered on the floor. Her knees were too weak to hold her up. She collapsed with her back against the wall, never once taking her eyes off Shiva. Tears broke through her proud eyes. She kept repeating, 0M Brahmanamar_0M Brahmanamar. What happened? Is it serious? Asked a worried Shiva. You have come. My lord, you have come. Before a bewildered Shiva could respond to her strange reaction, Nandi rushed in and noticed Ayurvati on the ground. Copious tears were flowing down her face. What happened, my lady? Asked a startled Nandi. Ayan, Kati just pointed at Shiva's neck. Nandi looked up. The neck shone an eerie iridescent blue. With a cry that sounded like that of a long-caged animal just released from captivity, Nandi collapsed on his knees. My lord. You have come. The Neelkanth has come. The captain bent low and brought his head down to touch the Neelkantha's feet reverentially. The object of his adoration, however, stepped back, and perturbed. What the hell is going on here? Shiva asked agitatedly. Holding a hand to his freezing neck, He turned around to the polished copper plate and stared in stunned astonishment at the reflection of his well-canth. His Bluth Trangid, holding the door frame for support, sobbed like a child. "We're saved. We're saved. He has come." Chapter 2 Land of Pure Life. Chinadwaj, the governor of Kashmir, wanted to broadcast to the entire world that the Nilkanth had appeared in his capital city. Not in the other frontier towns like Takshashila, Karakarpa or Lothal. His Srinagar. But the bird courier had arrived almost immediately from the Meluhan capital Dagajayari, the abode of the gods. The orders were crystal clear. The news of the arrival of the Nilkanth had to be kept secret until the emperor himself had seen Shiva. Chinadwal was ordered to send Shiva along with an escort to Devajayari. Most importantly, Shiva himself was not to be told about the legend. The emperor will advise the supposed Nilkanth in an appropriate manner were the exact words in the message. Chinadwaj had the privilege of informing Shiva about the journey. Shiva, though, not in the most amenable of moods. He was utterly perplexed by the sudden devotion of every Meluhan around him. Since he had been transferred to the gubernatorial residence where he lived in luxury, only the most important citizens of Srinagar had access to him. "Mind, we will be escorting you to Devagli, our capital. It is a few weeks' journey from here," said Chinadwaj as he struggled to bend his enormous and muscular frame lower than he ever had. "I'm not going anywhere till somebody tells me what is gone. What the hell is this damned legend of the Nilkanth?" Shiva asked angrily. "My lord, please have faith in us. You will know the truth soon. The emperor himself will tell you when you reach Devajayari." "And what about my tribe?" "They will be given lands right here in Kashmir, my lord. All the resources that they need in order to lead a comfortable life will be provided for." "Are they being held hostage?" "Oh no, my lord," said a visibly disturbed Chinadwaj. "They are a tribe, my lord. If I had my way, they do one day live like nobility for the rest of their lives. But the laws cannot be broken, my lord. Not even for you. We can only give them what had been promised. In the course of time, my lord, you can change the laws you deem necessary. Then we could certainly accommodate them anywhere." "Please, my lord," pleaded Nandi. "Have faith in us. You cannot imagine how important you are to Meluha. We have been waiting for a very long time for you. We need your help. Please help me. Please." The memory of another desperate plea from a distraught woman years ago returned to haunt Shiva as he was stunned into silence. Ksata, for at your destiny is much lesser than these massive mountains. Nonsense. I don't deserve any destiny. If these people knew of guilt, they would stop this bullshit instantly. I don't know what to do, Bhadra. Shiva was sitting in the royal gardens on the banks of the Dal Lake while his friend sat by his side, carefully filling some marijuana into a chillum. As Bhadra used the lit stick to bring the chillum to life, Shiva said impatiently, "That's a cue for you to speak, you fool." "No, that's actually a cue for me to hand you the chillum, Shiva." "Why will you not counsel me?" asked Shiva in anguish. "We are still the same friends who never made a move without consulting each other." Bhadra smiled. "No, we are not. You are the chief now. The tribe lives and dies by your decisions. It cannot be corrupted by any other person's influence. We are not like the Pakratis, where the chief has to listen to whoever is the loudmouth in their council. Only the chief's wisdom is supreme amongst the Gunas. That is our tradition." Shiva raised his eyes in exasperation. "Some traditions are meant to be broken." Bhadra stayed silent. Stretching his hand, Shiva grabbed the chillum from Bhadra. He took one deep puff, letting the marijuana spread its munificence into his body. "I've heard just one line about the legend of the Nilkanth," said Bhadra. "Apparently Meluha is in deep trouble and only the Nilkanth can save them." But I can't seem to see any trouble out here. Everything seems perfect. If they want to see real trouble, we should take them to our land. Badra laughed slightly. But what is it about the blue throat that makes them believe you can save them? Damned if I know. They are so much more advanced than us. And yet they worship me like I am some god. Just because of this blessed blue throat I think their medicines are magical though. Have you noticed that the hump on my back has reduced a little bit? Yes, it has. Their doctors are seriously gifted. You know their doctors are called Brahmins. Like Ayurveda? Asked Shiva, passing the chillum back to Badra. Yes. But the Brahmins don't just cure people. They are also teachers, lawyers, priests, basically any intellectual profession. Talented people, sniffed Shiva. That's not all, said Badra, in between a long inhalation. They have a concept of specialization. So in addition to the Brahmins, they have a group called Kshatriyas, who are the warriors and rulers. Even the women can be Kshatriyas. Really? They allow women into their army? Well, apparently there aren't too many female Kshatriyas. But yes, they are allowed into the army. No wonder they are in trouble. The friends laughed loudly at the strange ways of the Meluhans. Badra took another puff from the chillum before continuing his story. And then they have Vaishyas, who are craftsmen, traders and business people, and finally the Shudras, who are the farmers and workers. And one caste cannot do another caste's job. Hang on, said Shiva. That means that since you are a Ivarya, you would not be allowed to trade at the marketplace. Yes. Bloody stupid. How would you get me my marijuana? After all, that is the only thing you are useful for. Shiva leaned back to avoid the playful blow from Badra. All right, all right. Take it easy, he laughed. Stretching out, he grabbed the chillum from Badra and took another deep. We talking about everything except what we should be talking about. Shiva became serious once again. But seriously, strange as they are, what should I do? What are you thinking of doing? Shiva away, as if contemplating the roses in the far corner of the garden. I don't want to run away once again. What? Asked Badra, not hearing Shiva's tormented whisper clearly. I said, repeated Shiva loudly, I can't bear the guilt of running away once again. That wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. Badra fell silent. There was nothing that could be said. Covering his eyes, Shiva sighed once again. Yes, it was. Badra put his hand on his friend's shoulder, pressing it gently, letting the terrible moment pass. Shiva turned his face. I'm asking for advice, my friend. What should I do? If they need my help, I can't turn away from them. At the same time, how can I leave our tribe all by themselves out here? Should I do? Badra continued to hold Shiva's shoulder. He breathed deeply. He could think of an answer. It may have been the correct answer for Shiva, his fiend, but was it the correct answer for Shiva? The bad asterisk. You have to find that wisdom within yourself, Shiva. That is the tradition. Oh, the hell with you. Shiva threw the chillum back at Badra and stormed away. It was only a few days later that a minor caravan consisting of Shiva, Nandi and 3 soldiers was scheduled to leave Srinagar. The small party would ensure that they moved quickly through the realm and reached Devagiri as soon as possible. Governor Chinadwai was anxious for Shiva to be recognized quickly by the empire as the true Neelkanth. He wanted to go down in history as the governor who had found the Lord. Shulpa had been made presentable for the emperor. His hair had been oiled and smoothened. Lines of expensive clothes, attractive earrings, necklaces and other jewelry were used to adorn his muscular frame. His fair face had been scrubbed clean with special 4 Ayurvedic herbs to remove years of dead skin and decay. A cravat had been fashioned of cotton to cover his glowing blue throat beads, cleverly damed onto the fabric, gave it the appearance of the traditional necklace that Meluhan men sported during times of ritual. The cravat felt warm around his still cold throat. "I will lie back soon," said Shiva as he hugged Bhadra's mother. He was amazed to see that the old lady's limp was a little less noticeable. Their medicines are truly magical. As a morose Bhadra looked at him, Shiva whispered, "Take care of the tribe. You are in charge till I come back." Bhadra stepped back, startled. "Shiva, you don't have to do that just because I am your friend." "I have to do it, you fool. And the reason why I have to do it is that you are more capable than I am." Bhadra stepped up and embraced Shiva, lest his friend notice the tears in his eyes. "No Shiva, I am not. Not even in my dreams." "Shut up. Listen to me carefully," said Shiva as Bhadra smiled sadly. "I don't think the Gunners are at any risk here. At least not to the same extent as we were at Mount Kailash. But even so, if you feel you need help, ask Ayurvedi. I observed her when the tribe was ill. She showed tremendous commitment towards saving us all. She is trustworthy." Bhadra nodded, hugged Shiva once again and left the room. Ayurvedi knocked politely on the door. "May I come in, my lord?" This was the first time that she had come into his presence since that fateful moment 7 days back. It seemed like a lifetime to her. Though she appeared to be her confident self again, there was a slightly different look about her. She had the appearance of someone who had been touched by the divine. "Come in Ayurvedi and please, none of this lord business. I am still the same uncouth immigrant you met a few days back. I am sorry about that comment, my lord. It was wrong of me to say that, and I am willing to accept any punishment that you may deem fit." "What's wrong with you? Why should I punish you for speaking the truth? Why should this bloody blue throat change anything?" "You will discover the reason soon enough, my lord," whispered Ayurvedi with her head bowed. "We have waited for centuries for you." "Centuries? In the name of the holy lake, why? What can I do that any amongst you smart people can't?" "The emperor will tell you, my lord. Suffice it to say that after all that I have heard from your tribe, if there is one person it's 71 thy of being the Nilkanth, it is you." "Speaking of my tribe, I have told them that if they need any help, they can come to you. I hope that is all right. It would be my honor to provide any assistance to them, my lord." Saying this, she bent down to touch Shiva's feet in the traditional Indian form of showing respect. Shiva had resigned himself to accepting this gesture from most Meluhans but immediately stepped back as Ayurvedi bent down. "What the hell are you doing, Ayurvedi?" asked a horrified Shiva. "You are a doctor, a giver of life. Don't embarrass me by touching my feet." Ayan, Kati looked up at Shiva, her eyes shining with admiration and devotion. This was certainly a man worthy of being the Nilkanth Ksota. For at Nandi entered Shiva's room carrying a saffron cloth with the word Ram stamped across every inch of it. He requested Shiva to wrap it around his shoulders. As Shiva complied, Nandi muttered a quick short prayer for a safe journey to Devagli. "Our horses wait outside, my lord." "We can leave when you are ready," said Nandi. "Nandi," said an exasperated Shiva. "How many times must I tell you? My name is Shiva. I am your friend, not your lord." "Oh no, my lord," gasped Nandi. "You are the Nilkanth _ you are the lord. How can I take your name?" Shiva rolled his eyes, shook his head slightly and tumbled towards the door. "I give up. Can we leave now?" "Of course, my lord." They stepped outside to see 3 mounted soldiers waiting patiently, while tethered close to them were 3 more horses. 1 each for Shiva and Nandi, while the third was assigned for carrying their provisions. The well-organized Meluhan Empire had rest houses and provision stores spread across all Maya travel routes. As long as there were enough provisions for 1 day, a traveler carrying Meluhan coins could comfortably keep buying fresh provisions that would last a journey of months. Nandi's horse had been tethered next to a small platform. The platform had steps leading up to it from the other side. Clearly, This was convenient infrastructure for obese riders who found it a little cumbersome to climb onto a horse. Shiva looked at Nandi's enormous form, then at his unfortunate horse and then back at Nandi. "Aren't there any laws in Meluha against cruelty to animals?" asked Shiva with the most sincere of expressions. "Oh yes, my lord. Very strict laws. In Meluha all life is precious. In fact there are strict guidelines as to when and how animals can be slaughtered and—" Suddenly Nandi stopped speaking. Shiva's joke had finally breached Nandi's slow wit. They both burst out laughing as Shiva slapped Nandi hard on his back. Shiva's entourage followed the course of the Jhelum, which had resumed its thunderous roar as it crashed down the lower Himalayas. Once on the magnificent flat plains, the turbulent river calmed down again and flowed smoothly on. Smooth enough for the group to board one of the many public transport barges and sail quickly down to the town of Brihiteshpuram. From there on, they went eastwards down a well-marked road through Punjab, the heart of the empire's northern reaches. Punjab literally meant the land of risers, the land of the Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi and Beas. The four eastern rivers aspired to grasp the grand Indus, which flowed farthest to the west. They succeeded spectacularly, after convoluted journeys through the rich plains of Punjab. The Indus itself found comfort and succor in the enormous, all-embracing ocean. The mystery of the ocean's final destination though was yet to be unraveled. "What is Ram?" enquired Shiva as he looked down at the word coveting every inch of his saffron cloth. The three accompanying soldiers rode at a polite distance behind Shiva and Nandi. Far enough not to overhear any conversation but close enough to move in quickly at the first sign of trouble. It was a part of their standard Meluhan set 1 CE rules. "Lord Ram was the emperor who established our way of life," my lord replied Nandi. "He lived around 1200 years ago. He created our systems, our rules, our ideologies, everything. His reign is known simply as Ram Raid or the rule of Ram. The term Ram Rajya is considered the gold standard in how an empire must be administered, in order to create a perfect life for all its citizens. Meluha is still governed in accordance with his principles. Jai Shri Ram. He must have been quite a man. For he truly created a paradise right here on earth." Shilpa did not lie when he said this. He truly believed that if there was a paradise somewhere, it couldn't have been very different from Meluha. This was a land of abundance, of almost ethereal perfection. It was an empire ruled by clearly codified and just laws, to which every Meluhan was subordinated, including the emperor. The country supported a population of nearly 8 million, which without exception seemed well-fed, healthy and wealthy. The average intellect was exceptionally high. They were a slightly serious people, but unfailingly polite and civil. It seemed to be a flawless society where everyone was aware of his role and played it perfectly. They were conscious, nay obsessive, about their duties. The simple truth hit Shiva: if the entire society was conscious of its duties, nobody would need to fight for their individual rights. Since everybody's rights would be automatically taken care of through someone else's duties. Lord Ram was a genius. Shiva too repeated Nandi's cry, signifying glue to Lord Ram. Jai Shri Ram. Having left their horses at the government-authorized crossing house, they crossed the river Ravi, close to Muapar, or the city of Han. Shiva lingered for some time as he admired Hariupa from a slight distance, while his soldiers waited just beyond his shadow, having mounted their freshly allocated horses from the crossing house on the other side of the Ravi. Hariupa was a much larger city than Srinagar and seemed grand from the outside. Shiva considered exploring the magnificent city, but that would have meant a delay in the trip to Devajali. Next to Hariupa, Shiva saw a construction project being executed. A new platform was being erected as Hariupa had grown too populous to accommodate everyone on its existing platform. How the hell do they raise these magnificent platforms? Shiva made a mental note to visit the construction site on his return. At a distance, Jatta, the captain of the river crossing house, was talking to Nandi as he climbed the platform to mount his fresh horse. Avoid the road via Dratakjayari, advised Jatta. They suffered a terrorist attack last night. All the Brahmins were killed and the village temple was destroyed. The terrorists escaped as usual before any backup soldiers could arrive. When in Lord Agni's name will we fight back? We should attack their country, snarled visibly angry Nandi. I swear by Indindra, if I ever find one of these Chandravanshi terrorists, I will cut his body into minute pieces and feed it to the dogs, growled Jatta, clenching his fists tight. Jatta. We are followers of the Surivanshis. We cannot even think of barbaric warfare such as that, said Nandi. Do the terrorists follow the rules of war when they attack us? Don't they kill unarmed men? That does not mean that we can act in the same way, Captain. We are Meluhans, said Nandi, shaking his head. Jatta did not counter Nandi. He was distracted by Shiva, who was still waiting at a distance. Is he with you? He asked. Yes. He doesn't wear a caste amulet. Is he a new immigrant? Yes, replied Nandi, growing uncomfortable with the questions about Shiva. And you're going to Devajayari? Asked an increasingly suspicious Jatta, looking harder towards Shilpa's throat. I've heard some rumors coming from Srinagar. Nandi interrupted Jatta suddenly. Thank you for your help, Captain Jatta. Before Jatta could act on his suspicions, Nandi quickly climbed the platform, mounted his horse and rode Shiva. Reaching quickly, he said, we should leave, my lord. Shiva wasn't listening. He was perplexed once again as he saw the proud Captain Jatta on his knees. Jatta was looking directly at Shiva with his hands folded in a respectful namaste. He appeared to be mumbling something very quickly. Shiva couldn't assure from that distance, but it seemed as if the captain was crying. He shook his head and whispered, why? We should go, my lord, repeated Nandi, a little louder. Shiva tummed to him, nodded and kicked his horse into action. Shiva looked towards his left as he rode upon the straight road, observing Nandi goading his tear-harned horse along. He turned around and was not surprised to see his 3 bodyguard soldiers riding at exactly the same distance as before. Not too close, and yet, not too far. His glance also took in Nandi's jewelry, which he suspected were not merely ornamental. He wore 2 amulets on his thick right arm. The first one had some symbolic lines which Shiva could not fathom. The second one appeared to have an animal etching. Probably a bull. One of his gold chains had a pendant shaped like a perfectly circular sun, with rays streaming outwards. The other pendant was a brown, elliptical seed-like object with small serrations all over it. Can you tell me the significance of your jewelry, or is that also a state secret? Teased Shiva. Of course I can, my lord, replied Nandi earnestly. He pointed at the first amulet that had been tied around his massive arm with a silky gold thread. This is the amulet which represents my caste. The lines drawn on it symbolize the shoulders of the Paramatma, the All My 5. This means that I am a Kshatriya. I am sure there are clearly codified guidelines for representing the other castes as well. Right you are, my lord. You are exceptionally intelligent. No, I am not. You people are just exceptionally predictable. Nandi smiled as Shiva continued. So what are they? What are what, my lord? The symbols for the Brahmins, Vaishyas and Shudras. Well, if the lines are drawn to represent the head of the Paramatma, it would mean the wearer is a Brahmin. The symbol for a Vaishya would be the lines forming a symbol of the thighs of the Paramatma and the feet of the Paramatma on the amulet would make the wearer a Shudra. Interesting, said Shiva with a slight frown. I imagine most Shudras are not too pleased about their placement. Nandi was quite surprised by Shiva's comments. He couldn't understand why a Shudra would have a problem with this long-ordained symbol. But he kept quiet for fear of disagreeing with his lord. And the other amulet? Asked Shiva. This second amulet depicts my chosen tribe. Each chosen trill takes on IOBs which fit its profile. Every Meluhan, in consultation with his parents, applies for a chosen tribe when he comes 25 years old. Brahmins choose from birds, while Kshatriyas apply for animals. Flowers are allocated to Vaishyas while Shudras must choose from amongst fish. The allocation board allocates the chosen tribe on the basis of a rigorous examination process. You must qualify for a chosen tribe that represents both your ambitions and skills. Choose a tribe that is too mighty and you will embarrass yourself throughout your life if your achievements don't measure up to the standards of that tribe. Choose a tribe too lowly and you will not be doing justice to your own talents. My chosen tribe is a bull. That is the animal that this amulet represents. And if I am not being rude, what does a bull mean in your rank of Kshatriya chosen tribes? Well, it's not as high as a lion, tiger or an elephant, but it's not a rat or a pig either. Well, as far as I am concerned, the bull can beat any lion or elephant, smiled Shiva. And what about the pendants on your chain? The brown seed is a representation of the last Mahadev, Lord Rudra. It symbolizes the protection and regeneration of life. Even divine weapons cannot destroy the life it protects. And the sun. Ali Lord, the sun represents the fact that I am a follower of the Suriv or high kings, the kings who are the descendants of somewhat. The sun came down and some queen __ teased an incredulous Shiva. Of course not, my lord, laughed Nandi. All it means is that we follow the solar calendar. So you could say that we are the followers of the path of the sun. In practical terms it denotes that we are strong and steadfast. We honor our word and keep our promises even at the cost of our lives. We never break the law. We deal honorably even with those who are dishonorable. Like the sun, we never take from anyone but always give to others. We sear our duties into our consciousness so that we may never forget them. Being a Surivanshi means that we must always strive to be honest, brave and above all, loyal to the truth a tall order. I assume that Lord Ram was a Surivanshi king. Yes, of course, replied Nandi, his chest puffed up with pride. He was the Surivanshi king. Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ram, repeated Shiva. Nandi and Shiva crossed the river Bees on a boat. Their soldiers waited for the following craft. The Bees was the last river to be crossed, after which the straight road stretched towards Devagli _ unseasonal rain the previous night had made the crossing house captain consider cancelling the DAF's crossings across the river. However, the weather had been relatively calm since the morning, allowing the captain to keep the SIS operational. Shiva and Nandi shared the boat with other passengers as well as the boatmen who rowed them across. They had traded in their existing horses at the crossing house for fresh horses on the other side. They were a short distance from the opposite bank when a sudden burst of torrential rain came down from the heavens. The winds took on a sudden ferocity. The boatman made a valiant effort to row quickly across, but the boat tossed violently as it surrendered to the elements. Nandi stretched towards Shiva in order to tell him to stay low for safety. But he did not do it gently enough. His considerable weight caused the boat to list dangerously, and he fell overboard. The boatman tried to steady the boat with his oars so he could save the other passengers. Even as he did so, he had the presence of MMD to pull out his conch and blow an emergency call to the crossing house on the other side. The other two passengers should have jumped overboard to save Nandi, but his massive build made them hesitate. They knew that if they tried to save him, they would most likely drown. Shiva felt no such hesitation as he quickly tossed aside his angvastram, pulled off his shoes and dived into the turbulent river. Shiva swam with powerful strokes and quickly reached a rapidly drowning Nandi. He had to use all of his considerable strength to pull Nandi to the surface. In spite of being buoyed by the water, Nandi weighed significantly more than what any normal man would. It was fortunate that Shiva felt stronger than ever since the first night at the Srinagar immigration camp. Shiva positioned himself behind Nandi and wrapped one arm around his chest. He used his other arm to swim towards the bank. Nandi's weight made it very exhausting work, but Shiva was able to tow the Meluhan captain to the shore, just as the emergency staff from the crossing house came rapidly towards them. Shiva helped them drag Nandi's limp body onto the land. He was unconscious. The emergency staff then began a strange procedure. One of them started pressing Nandi's chest in a quick rhythmic motion to the count of 5. Just as he would stop, another emergency staff would cover Nandi's lips with his own and breathe hard into his mouth, after which, they would repeat the procedure all over again. Shiva did not understand what was going on but trusted both the expertise as well as the commitment of the Meluhan medical personnel. After several anxious moments, Nandi suddenly coughed up a considerable amount of water and woke up with a start. At first he was disoriented, but he quickly regained his wits and tumbled abruptly towards Shiva, screeching, "My lord, why did you jump in after me? Your life is too precarious. You must never risk it for me." A surprised Shiva supported Nandi's back and whispered calmly, "You need to relax, my friend." Agreeing with Shiva, the medical staff quickly placed Nandi on a stretcher and carried him into the rest house abutting the crossing house. The other boat passengers were observing Shiva with increasing curiosity. They knew that the fat man was a relatively senior Surivanshi soldier, judging by his amulets. Yet he called this fair, caste unmarked man his lord. Strange. However, all that mattered that the soldier was safe. They dispersed as Shiva followed the medical staff into the rest house. Chapter 3 She enters his life. Nandi lay semi-conscious for several hours as the medicines administered by the doctors worked on his body. Shiva sat by his side, repeatedly changing the wet cloth on his burning forehead to control the fever. Nandi kept babbling incoherently as he tossed and tumbled in his sleep, making Shiva's task that much more difficult. "I've been searching ___long. _100 years ___. Never thought I _find Neelkanth Jai Shri Ram." Shiva ignored Nandi's babble as he tried to keep the fever down. But his ears had caught on to something he has been searching for 100 years. Shiva frowned. The fever's affecting his bloody brain. He doesn't look a do older than 20 years. "I've been searching for 100 years __," continued the oblivious Nandi. Neelkanth I found." Shiva stopped for a moment and stared hard at Nandi. Then shaking his head dismissively, he continued his ministrations. Shiva had been walking on a paved, signposted road along the river Bees for the better part of an hour. He had left the rest house to explore the area by himself, much against a rapidly recovering Nandi's advice. Nandi was out of danger, but they had been advised to wait for a few days nevertheless, so that the captain could be strong enough to travel. There was not much for Shiva to do at the rest house and he had begun to feel restless. The 3 soldiers had tried to shadow Shiva, but he had angrily dismissed them. "Will you please stop trying to stick to me like leeches?" The rhythmic hymn sung by the gentle waters of the Bee soothed Shiva. A cool tender breeze teased his thick lock of hair. He rested his hand on the hilt of his scabbard as his mind swirled with persistent questions. Is Nandi Relo more *ban 100 years old? But that's impossible. And what the hell do these crazy Meluha need me for energy? And why in the name of the holy lake is my blood throat still feeling so cold? Lost in his thoughts, Shiva did not realize that he had strayed off the road into a clearing where, staring him in the face, was the most beautiful building he had ever seen. It was built entirely of white and pink marble. An imposing flight of stairs led up to the top of a high platform, which had been adorned by pillars around its entire circumference. The ornate roof topped by a giant triangular spire, like a giant namaste to the gods. Elaborate sculptures were carved upon every available space on the structure. Shiva had been in Meluha for many days now and all the buildings he had seen so far were functional and efficient. However, this particular one was oddly flamboyant. At the entrance, a signpost announced, "Temple of Lord Brahma." The Meluhans appeared to reserve their creativity for religious places. There was a small crowd of hawkers around the courtyard in the clearing. Some were selling flowers, others were selling food. Still others were selling assorted items required for Apgaya. There was a stall where worshippers could leave their footwear as they went up to the temple. Shiva left his shoes there and walked up the steps. As he entered the main temple, he found himself staring at the designs and sculptures, mesmerized by the sheer magnificence of the architecture. "What are you doing here?" Shiva turned around to find a pandit staring at him quizzically. His wizened face sported a flowing white beard matched in length by his silvery mane. Wearing a saffron dhoti and angvastram, he had the calm, gentle look of a man who had already attained nirvana, but had chosen to remain on earth to fulfill some heavenly duties. Shiva realized that the pandit was the first truly old person that he had seen in Meluha. "I am sorry. Am I not allowed in here?" asked Shiva politely. "Of course you are allowed in here. Everyone is allowed into the house of the gods." Shiva smiled. However, before he could respond, the pandit questioned him once again, "But you don't believe in these gods, do you?" Shiva's smile disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. "How the hell does he know?" The pandit answered the question posed by Shiva's eyes. "Everyone who enters this place of worship has eyes only for the idol of Brahma. Almost nobody notices the brilliance of the architects who built this lovely temple. You, however, have eyes only for the work of the architects. You have not yet cast even a glance upon the idol." Shiva grinned apologetically. "You guessed right. I don't believe in symbolic gods. I believe that God exists all around us. In the flow of the river, in the rustle of the trees, in the whisper of the winds. He speaks to us all the time. All we need to do is listen. However, I apologize if I have caused some offense by not being respectful towards your God." "You don't need to apologize, my friend," smiled the pandit. "There is no your God, my God. All godliness comes from the same source. Is just the manifestations that are different, but I have a feeling that one day you will find a temple worth walking into purely for prayer and not its beauty." "Really? Which temple might that be?" "You will find it when you are ready, my friend. Why do these Melubans all Eurovs talk bizzapidals?" Shiva nodded politely, his expression suggesting an appreciation for the pandit's words that he did not truly feel. He thought it excised to flee the temple before he outlived his welcome. "I should be getting back to my rest house now, Panditji. But I eagerly look forward to finding the temple of my destiny." "It was a pleasure meeting you," said Shiva, as he bent down to touch the pandit's feet. Placing his hand on Shiva's head, the pandit said gently, "Jai Guru Vishwamitra. Jai Gum Vasbishtha." Shiva rose, turned and walked down the steps. Looking at Shiva walking away from him, clearly out of earshot, the pandit whispered with an admiring smile, for he had recognized his fellow traveler Karma. "The pleasure was all mine, my Kamlazat." Shiva reached the shoe stall, put on his shoes and offered a coin for the service. The shoekeeper politely declined. "Thank you, sir, but this is a service provided by the government of Meluha. There is no charge for it." Shiva smiled. "Of course. You people have a system for everything. Thank you." The shoekeeper smiled back. "We are only doing our duty, sir." Shiva walked back to the temple steps. As he sat down, he breathed in deeply and let the tranquil atmosphere suffuse him with its serenity. And then it happened. The moment that every unrealized heart craves for. The unforgettable instant that a soul, clinging on to the purest memory of its previous life, longs for. The moment which, in spite of a conspiracy of the gods, only a few lucky men experience. The moment when she enters his life. She rode in on a chariot, guiding the horses expertly into the courtyard, while a lady companion by her side held on to the railings. Although her black hair was tied in an understated bun, a few irreverent strands danced a spellbinding Kathak in the wind. Her piercingly magnetic, blue eyes and bronzed skin were an invitation for jealousy from the goddesses. Her body, though covered demurely in a long angvastram, still ignited Shiva's imagination into sensing the lovely curves which lay beneath. Her flawless face was a picture of concentration as she maneuvered the chariot skillfully into its parking place. She dismounted the chariot with an air of confidence. It was a calm confidence which had not covered the ugly distance towards arrogance. Her walk was dignified, stately enough to let a beholder know that she was detached, but not cold. Shiva stared at her like a parched piece of earth mesmerized by a passing rain cloud. "Have mercy on me, my lady, I still feel that it's not wise to wander so far from the rest of your entourage," said her companion. She answered, "Kritika, just because others don't know the law, doesn't mean that we can ignore it." Lord Ram clearly stated that once a year, a pious woman has to visit Lord Brahma. I will not break that law, no matter how inconvenient it is to the bodyguards. The lady noticed Shiva staring at her as she passed by. Her delicate eyebrows arched into a surprised ich3k and then an annoyed frown. Shiva made a valiant attempt to tear his glance away, but realized that his eyes were no longer in his control. She continued walking up, followed by Kritika. She turned around at the top of the temple steps, to see the caste unmarked immigrant at a distance, still staring at her unabashedly. Before turning and walking into the main temple, she muttered to Kritika, "These uncouth immigrants. As if we'll find our savior from amongst these barbarians." It was only when she was out of sight that Shiva could breathe again. As he desperately tried to gather his wits, his overwhelmed and helpless mind took one obvious decision: there was no way he was leaving the temple before getting another look at her. He sat down on the steps once again. As his breathing and heartbeat returned to normal, he finally began to notice the surroundings that had been consecrated by her recent presence. He stared once again at the road on the left from where she had turned in. She had ridden past the cucumber seller standing near the banyan tree. Incidentally, why is the cucumber seller not trying to hawk his wares? He just seems to be staring at the temple. As Ige, it is not all of my business. He followed the path that her chariot had taken as it had swerved to its left, around the fountain at the center of the courtyard. It had then taken a sharp right turn past the shepherd standing at the entrance of the garden. But where were this shepherd's sheep? Shiva continued to look down the path that the chariot had taken to the parking lot. Next to the chariot stood another man who had just walked into the temple complex, but had inexplicably not entered the temple itself. He turned to the shepherd and appeared to nod slightly. Before Shiva could piece together the information from his observation, he felt her presence once again. He turned immediately to see her walking down the steps, with Kritika silently behind. On still finding this rude, caste unmarked, obviously foreign man staring at her, she walked up to him and asked in a firm but polite voice, "Excuse me, is there a problem?" "No. No. There's no problem. But I feel that I've seen you somewhere before," replied a flustered Shiva. The lady was not sure how to respond to this. It was obviously a lie, but the voice was sincere. Before she could react, Kritika cut in rudely. "Is that the best line you can come up with?" As Shiva was about to retort, he was alerted by a quick movement from the cucumber seller. Shiva turned to see him pulling out a sword as he tossed his shawl aside. The shepherd and the man next to the chariot also stood poised in traditional fighter positions with their swords drawn. In a flash Shiva drew his sword and stretched out his left hand protectively, to pull the object of his fascination behind him. She however deftly sidestepped his protective hand, reached into the folds of her angvastram and drew out her own sword. Surprised, Shiva flashed her a quick, admiring smile. Her eyes flashed right back, acknowledging the unexpected yet providential partnership. She whispered under her breath to Kritika, "Run back into the temple. Stay there till this is," Kritika protested. "But my lady now," she ordered. Kritika turned and ran up the temple steps. Shiva and the lady stood back to back in a standard defensive partner position, Covering all the directions of any possible attack, the three attackers charged in. Two more jumped in from behind the trees. Shiva raised his sword defensively just as the shepherd came up close. Feigning a sideward movement to draw the shepherd into an aggressive attack, Shiva dropped his sword low. He hoped to tempt him to move in for a kill wound, and in response, he would have quickly raised his sword and dug it deep into the shepherd's heart. The shepherd, however, moved unexpectedly. Instead of taking advantage of Shiva's opening, he tried to strike Shiva's shoulder. Shiva quickly raised his right arm and swung viciously, inflicting a deep wound across the shepherd's torso. As the shepherd fell back, another attacker moved in from the right. He swung from a distance. Not too smart a move, as it would merely have inflicted a surface nick. Shiva stepped back to avoid the swing and brought his sword down in a smooth action to dig deep into the attacker's thigh, screaming in agony. This attacker too fell back as yet another attacker joined in from the left. Shiva began to realize that this was indeed a very strange assault. The attackers seemed to know what they were doing. They seemed like accomplished warriors. But they also seemed to be in a bizarre dance of avoidance. They did not appear to want to kill but merely injure. It was due to Thiel circumspection that they were being beaten back easily. Shiva parried another attack from the left and pushed his sword viciously into the man's shoulder. The man screamed in pain as Shiva pushed him off the blade with his left hand. Slowly, but surely, the attackers were being worn out. They were suffering too many injuries to seriously carry on the assault for long. Suddenly a giant of a man ran in from behind the trees carrying swords in both hands. The man was cloaked in a black hooded robe from head to toe while his face was hidden behind a mask. The only visible parts of his body were his large impassive almond-shaped eyes and strong fleshy hands. He charged upon Shiva and the lady as he barked an order to his men. He was too large to battle with agility. But his slow pace was compensated by his unusually skilled arms. Shiva perceived from the corner of his eye that the other attackers were picking up the injured and withdrawing. The hooded figure was performing a brilliant rearguard action as his men retreated. Shiva realized that the man's hood would impair his peripheral vision. Here was a weakness that could be exploited. Moving to the left, Shiva swung ferociously, hoping to peg him back so that the lady could finish the 10B from the other side. But his opponent was up to the challenge. As he stepped slightly back, he deflected Shiva's swing with a deft move of his right hand. Shiva noticed a leather band on the hooded figure's right wrist. It had a sharp symbol on it. Shiva swung his sword back, but the hooded figure moved aside effortless. He pushed back a brutal flanking attack from the lady with his left hand. He was keeping just enough distance from Shiva and the lady to defend himself while at the same time keeping them engaged in combat. All of a sudden the hooded figure disengaged from the battle and stepped back. Even as he retreated, his swords continued to point menacingly at Shiva and the lady. His men had disappeared into the trees. On reaching a safe distance, he turned around and ran after his men. Shiva considered chasing him but almost immediately decided against it. He might just rush into an ambush. Shiva turned to the lady warrior and inquired, "Are you all right?" "Yes, I am," she nodded before asking with a somber expression. "Are you injured?" "No thanks_I'll 3 he grinned. In the meantime, Kritika came running down the temple steps and asked breathlessly, "My lady_are you alright?" "Yes, I am," she answered. "Thanks to this foreigner here." Kritika turned to Shiva and said, "Thank you very much. You have helped a very important woman." Shiva did not seem to be listening though. He continued to stare at Kritika's mistress as if he were possessed. Kritika struggled to conceal a smile. The noble woman averted her eyes in embarrassment, but said politely, "See, I am sorry, but I am quite sure that we have not met earlier." "No, not that," said a smiling Shiva. "It's just that in our society, women don't fight. You don't wield your sword too badly for a woman." "Oh, Belle. That came out all." "Excuse me," she said, a slightly belligerent tone creeping into her voice, clearly upset about the foray woman remark. You don't fight too badly either for a barbarian. Not too badly. I'm an exceptional sword fighter. Do you want to try me? Oh bloody hell, what am I assuring? I'm not going to impress her like this. Her expression resumed its detached, supercilious look once again. I have no interest in dueling with you, foreigner. No. No. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to duel with you. I just wanted to tell you that I am quite good at sword fighting. I am good at other things as well. And it came out all wrong. I rather like the fact that you fought for yourself. You are a very good swordsman. I mean a swordswoman. In fact, you are quite a woman. J bumbled Shiva, losing the filter of enjoyment, exactly at the time when he needed it the most. Kritika, with her head bowed, smiled at the increasingly appealing exchange. Her mistress, on the other hand, wanted to chastise the foreigner for his highly inappropriate words. But he had saved her life. She bound by the Meluhan code of conduct. Thank you for your help, foreigner. I owe you my life and you will not find me ungrateful. If you ever need my help, do call on me. Can I call on you even if I don't need your help? Shit. What am I suing? She glared at the caste-unmarked foreigner who clearly did not know his place. With superhuman effort, she controlled herself, nodded politely and said, Namaste. With that, the aristocratic woman turned around to leave. Kritika continued to stare at Shiva's admiring eyes. However, on seeing her mistress leaving, she too turned around hurriedly and followed. At least tell me your name, said Shiva, walking to keep pace with her. She turned around, staring even more gravely at Shiva. Look, how will I find you if I need your help? Asked Shiva sincerely. Momentarily disarmed, she remained silent. The request seemed reasonable. She turned towards Kritika and nodded. You can find us at Devajayari, answered Kritika. Ask anyone. The city for Lady Sati. Sati ____2, said Shiva, letting the ethereal name roll over his tongue. My name is Shiva. Namaste, Shiva. And I promise you, I will honor my word if you ever need my help, said Sati as she turned and climbed into her chariot, followed by Kritika expertly tumming the chariot. Sati urged her horses into a trot. Without a backward look she sped alvari from the temple. Shiva kept staring at the fast disappearing profile of the chariot. Once it was gone, he continued to stare at the dust with intense jealousy. It had been fortunate enough to have touched her. I think I'm going to like this country. For the first time in the army, Shiva actually looked forward to reaching the capital city of the Meluhans. He smiled and started towards the rest house. Have to get to Dwaj quick. Chapter 4 Abode of the Gods. What? Who attacked you? Cried a concerned Nandi as he rushed towards Shiva and examined his wounds. Relax, Nandi, replied Shiva. You are in worse shape than I am after per adventure in the water. It's just a few superficial cuts. Nothing serious. The doctors have already dressed the wounds. I am alright. I am sorry, my lord. It's entirely my fault. I should never have left you alone. It will never happen again. Please forgive me, my lord. Pushing Nandi gently back onto the bed, Shiva said, There's nothing to forgive, my friend. How can this be your fault? Please calm down. Getting excited will not do your health any good. Once Nandi had calmed down a bit, Shiva continued, In any case, I don't think they were trying to kill us. It was very strange. Yes, there were no women involved. But who could these attackers be? Asked Nandi. Then a disturbing thought dawned on Nandi. Did the attackers wear a pendant with a crescent MCHDN on it? Shiva frowned. No. But there was this one strange man. The best swordsman among them. He was covered from head to toe in a robe, his face hidden by a mask, the kind I've seen you people wear at that color festival. What is it called? Holy, my lord. Yes, the holy kind of mask. In any case, you could only see his eyes and his hands. His only distinguishing feature was a leather bracelet with a strange symbol on it. What symbol, my lord? Picking up a palm leaf booklet and the thin charcoal writing stick from the side table, Shiva drew the symbol. Nandi frowned. That is an ancient symbol that some people used for the arm. But who would want to use this symbol now? Arm, asked Shiva. My lord, Om is the holiest word in our religion. It is considered the primeval sound of nature. The hymn of the universe. It was so holy that for many millennia, most people would not insult it by putting it down in written form. Then how did this symbol come about? It was devised by Lord Bharat, a great ruler who had conquered practically all of India many thousands of years ago. A rare Chandravarhi who was worth respecting. He had even married a Suyavanshi princess with the aim of ending our perpetual war. Who are the Chandravarhis? Asked Shiva. Think of them as the very antithesis of us, my lord. They are the followers of the kings who are the descendants of the moon, and they follow the lunar calendar. Yes, my lord. They are a crooked, untrustworthy and lazy people with no rules, morals or honor. They are cowards who never attack like principled Kshatriyas. Even their kings are corrupt and selfish. The Chandravanshis are a blot on humanity, but what does the arm symbol have to do with this? Well, K_Bharat created this symbol of unity between the Suryavanshis and the Chandravanshis. The top half in white represents the Chandravanshis, the bottom half in red represents the Suryavanshis. The amalgam of these is the emergent common path represented in orange. The crescent moon to the right of the symbol was the pre-existing Chandravanshi symbol. And the sun above it was the pre-existing Suryavanshi symbol. In order to signify that this was a pact blessed by the gods, Lord Bharat mandated the representation of this symbol as the holy word Om. And then what happened? As expected, the pact died along with the good king. Once the influence of Ind Bharat was removed, the Chandravanshis were soon up to their old tricks and the war began once again. The symbol was forgotten and the word Om reverted to its original form of pure sound without a written representation. But the symbol on the bracelet of this hooded man was not colored. It was all black and the parts of the symbol didn't look like lines to me. They looked like a drawing of 3 serpents. Naga, exclaimed a shocked Nandi, before mumbling a soft prayer and touching his Rudra pendant for protection. Now who the bloody hell are the Nagas? Asked Shiva. They are cursed people, my lord, gasped Nandi. They are born with hideous deformities because of the sins of their previous births. Deformities like extra hands or horribly misshapen faces. But they have tremendous strength and skills. The Naga name alone strikes terror in any citizen's heart. They are not even allowed to live in the Sapt Sindhu. The Sapt Sindhu. Our land, my lord, the land of the 7 rivers. The land of the Indus, Saraswati, Ganga, Sarayu, Brahmaputra and Narmada. This is where Lord Manu mandated Yamuna, that all of us, Suryavanshis and Chandravanshis, live. Shiva nodded as Nandi continued. The city of the Nagas exists to the south of the Narmada, beyond the border of our lands. In fact, it is bad luck to even speak of them, my lord. But why do one Naga attack me? Or any Meluhan for that matter? Cursing under his breath, Nandi said, because of the Chandravanshis. What levels have these two-faced people sunk to? Xing the demon Nagas in their attacks. In their hatred for us, they don't even realize how many sins they are inviting upon their own souls. Shiva frowned. During the attack, it hadn't appeared as if the Naga was being used by the small platoon of soldiers. In fact, it looked like the Naga was the leader. It took another week for them to reach Devagiri. The capital city of the Meluhans stood on the west bank of the Sarasvati, which emerged at the confluence of the Sutlej and Yamuna rivers. Sadly, though, Her majestic flow and mighty girth had now ebbed, but even in her reduced state, she was still massive and awe-inspiring. Unlike many of the tempestuous rivers of the Punjab though, the Saraswati was achingly calm. The river seemed to sense that her days were drawing to an end, yet she did not fight aggressively to thrust her way through and Satviv. Instead, she unselfishly gave her all to those who came to seek her treasures. The soaring Devagiri though, was in complete contrast to the mellow Sarasvati. Like all Meluhan cities, Devagiri too was built on giant platforms, an effective protection against floods as well as enemies. However, Devagiri differed from other Meluhan cities in its sheer size. The city sprawled atop 3 giant platforms, each of them spreading over 350 hectares, significantly larger than the other cities. The platforms were nearly 8 meters high and were bastioned by giant blocks of cut stone interspaced with baked bricks. 2 of the platforms, named Tam and Agat, literally, bronze and silver, were for the common man, whereas the platform named Swana or gold was the royal citadel. The platforms were connected to each other by tall bridges, made of stones and baked bricks, which rose above the floodplains. Along the periphery of each enormous platform were towering city ivals, with giant spikes facing outwards. There were turrets at regular intervals along the city walls from where approaching enemies could be repelled. This spectacle was beyond anything that Shiva had ever seen. In his mind, the construction of a city like this must truly be man's greatest achievement. Shiva's entourage rode up towards the drawbridge across the field of spikes to the Tamra platform. The drawbridge had been reinforced with metal bars at the bottom and had rough and baked bricks laid out on top so that horses and chariots would not slip. The thing about the bricks he had seen across the empire that had intrigued Shiva. Was some coming to Nandi? He asked. Are these bricks made by some standard process? Yes, my lord, replied a surprised Nandi. All the bricks in Meluha are made in accordance with specifications and guidelines given by the chief architect of the empire. But how did you guess? They are all of exactly the same dimension. Nandi beamed with pride at both his empire's efficiency as well as his in's power of observation. The platform rose at the end of the drawbridge, with a road spiraling up to the summit in one gentle turn, facilitating the passage of horses and chariots. In addition, there was a broad flight of stairs leading straight up the incline for pedestrians. The city walls and the platform extended steeply onto the sides around this slope, making it a valley of death for any enemy foolish enough to attack the platform from this direction. The city gates were made of a metal that Shiva had never seen before. Nandi clarified that they were made of iron, a new metal that had just been discovered. It was the strongest of all the metals but very expensive. The ore required to make it was not easily available. At the platform entry, on top of the city gates, was etched the symbol of the Saravanshis, a bright red circular sun with its rays blazing out in all directions. Below it was the motto that they lived by: Sara. Dhamma man, truth, duty, honor. Even this initial introduction to the city had left Shiva awestruck. However, what he witnessed at the top of the platform, within the city gates, was truly breathtaking both in its efficiency and simplicity. The city was divided into a grid of square blocks by the paved streets. There were footpaths on the side for pedestrians, lanes marked on the street for traffic in different directions, and of course, there were covered drains running through the center. All the buildings were constructed as standard 2-storied block structures made of baked bricks. On top were wooden extensions for increasing the height of the building, if required. Nandi clarified to Shiva that the layout of the buildings differed internally depending on their individual requirements. All windows and doors were built into the side walls of buildings, never facing the main road. The blank that faced the main roads bore striking black etchings depicting the different legends of the Saravanshis, while the walls themselves were painted in the sober colors of grey, light blue, light green or white. The most common background color though, appeared to be blue. The holiest color for the Meluhans was blue, denoting the sky. Green, representing nature, happened to be placed just after blue in the color spectrum. Meluhans liked to divine a grand design in every natural phenomenon and thought it wondrous that blue was placed just before green in the color spectrum, just as the sky happened to be above the earth. The most recurring illustrations on the walls were about the great emperor, Lord Ram. His victories over his enemies, his subjugation of the wicked Chandravanshis, incidents depicting his statesmanship and wisdom, had all been lovingly recreated. Lord Ram was deeply revered, and many Meluhans worshipped him like a god. They referred to him as Vishnu, an ancient title for the greatest of the gods meaning protector of the world and propagator of good. As Shiva leaned from Nandi, the city was divided into many districts consisting of 4 to 8 blocks. Each district had its own markets, commercial and residential areas, temples and entertainment centers. Manufacturing or any other polluting activity was conducted in separate quarters away from the districts. The efficiency and smoothness with which Devagiri functioned behind the fact that it was the most populous city in the entire empire. The census conducted avo years back had pegged the population of the city at avo 100,000. Nandi led Shiva and the 3 soldiers to one of the city*'s numerous guest houses, built for the many tourists that frequented Devagiri, for both business and leisure. Having duly handed over their exhausted horses to the care of the stable boy, they strode in to register themselves. Shiva took in the guest house with a familiar eye, similar to so many he had seen throughout their journey. There was a central courtyard with the building built around it. The rooms were comfortably furnished and spacious. "My lord, W's almost dinner time," said Nandi. "I will speak with the housekeeper and get some food organized. We should eat early and get enough sleep since our appointment with the emperor has been fixed at the beginning of the second prahar tomorrow." "Sounds like a good idea. Also, if it is all right with you, shall I dismiss the soldiers and send them back to Srinagar?" "That also sounds like a good idea," said a smiling Shiva. "Why Nandi, you are almost like a fount of brilliant ideas." Nandi laughed along with Shiva, always happy to be the harbinger of a smile on his lord's face. "I'll just be back, my lord." Shiva lay down on his bed and was quickly lost in the thoughts that really mattered to him. "I'll finish the meat the impow as soon as it is human possible, give Bhimwatar the bloody help he wants and though, scour the CIO for Safi." Shiva had considered asking Nandi about the whereabouts of Sati but had eventually decided against it. He was painfully aware that he had made a less than spectacular impression on her at their first meeting. If she hadn't made it easy for him to find her, it only meant that she wasn't terribly stirred by him. He didn't want to compound his mistake by speaking casually about her with others. He smiled as the memory of her face came flooding back to him. He replayed the magical moments when he had seen her fighting. Not the most romantic of sights for most men of his tribe. But for Shiva, it was divine. He sighed recalling her soft, delicate body, which had suddenly developed brutal, killer qualities upon being attacked. The curves that had so captivated him swung smoothly as she transferred her weight to swing her sword. The soberly tied hair had swayed sensuously with each movement of the sword arm. He breathed deeply. "What are you, Oman?" Ksata 4 At early next morning Shiva and Nandi crossed the bridge between the Tam and Svama platforms to reach the royal citadel. The bridge, another marvel of Meluhan engineering, was flanked on the sides by a thick wall. Holes punched into the walls enabled defenders to shoot arrows or pour hot oil on enemies. The bridge was bisected by a massive gate, a final protection the likelihood of the other platform being lost to an enemy. Shiva was completely taken by surprise when they crossed over to the Svama platform, not by the grandeur of the royal area but by the lack of it. He was shocked that there was no opulence. Despite ruling over such a massive and wealthy empire, the nobility lived in a conspicuously simple manner. The structure of the royal citadel was almost exactly like the other platforms. There were no special concessions made for the aristocrats. The same block structures that dominated all of Meluha were to be found in the royal citadel as well. the only magnificent structure to the far right and sported the sign Great Public Bath. The bath also had a glorious temple to Lord Indra built on the left-hand side. The temple was built of wood and it stood on a raised foundation of baked bricks, its cupola plated with solid gold. It seemed that special architecture was reserved only for structures built for the gods or ones that were for the common good. Probably just like Lord Ramwoodhore wanted the only concession to the emperor, however, was that his standard block structure was larger than the others. Significantly larger. Shiva and Nandi entered the royal private office to find Emperor Daksha sitting on a simple throne at the far end of the modestly furnished room, flanked by a man and a woman. Daksha greeted Shiva with a formal namaste and said, "I hope your journey was comfortable." He looked too young to be an emperor of such a large country. Though he was marginally shorter than Shiva, they differed in their musculature. While the strapping Shiva was powerfully built, Daksha's body indicated that it had not been strained by too much exercise. It wasn't that he was obese either, just average. The same could be said about his wheat-complexioned face. Average-sized, dark eyes flanked a straight nose. He wore his hair long like most Meluhan men and women. The head bore a majestic crown, the sun symbol of the Surivanshis manifested in the center through sparkling gemstones. His clothes consisted of an elegantly draped dhoti and an angvastram placed over his right shoulder. A large amount of functional jewelry, including Evo amulets on his right arm, complemented Daksha's average appearance. His only distinguishing feature was his smile, which spread its innocent conviction all the way to his eyes. Emperor Daksha looked like a man who wore his royalty lightly. "Yes, it was, Your Highness," replied Shiva. "The infrastructure in Per Empire is wonderful. You are an extraordinary emperor." "Thank you. But I only deserve reflected credit. The work is done by my people." "You are too modest, Your Highness." Smiling politely, Daksha asked, "May I introduce my most important aides?" Without waiting for an answer, he pointed to the seventh man on his left. "This is my Prime Minister, Kanakala. She takes care of the administrative, revenue and protocol matters." Kanakala did a formal namaste to Shiva. Her head was shaved except for a tuft of smooth hair at the back which had been tied into a knot. She had a string called the J now tied across from her left shoulder down to the right side of her torso. Though young looking like most Meluhans, the flab on her torso between the white blouse and dhoti didn't escape Shiva's keen eye. She had a dark and incredibly smooth complexion and, like all her countrymen, wore jewelry that was restrained and conservative. Shiva noticed that the second amulet on Kanakala's arm showed a pigeon. Not a very high-chosen tribe amongst the Brahmins. Shiva bent low and did a formal namaste in reply. Pointing to his right, Daksha said, "And this is my chief of the armed forces, General Parvateshwar. He looks after the army, navy, special forces, police etc." Parvateshwar looked like a man that Shiva would think twice about taking on a battle. He was taller than Shiva and had an immensely muscular physique that dominated the space around him. His curly long hair had been combed back severely and fell from under his crown in a disciplined array. His smooth, swarthy skin was marked by the proud signs of long years' battle. His body was hairless, in a rare departure from the normally hirsute Kshatriya men who considered body hair a sign of machismo. As if to make up for this deficiency, Parvateshwar maintained a thick and long moustache which curled upwards at the edges. His eyes reflected his uncompromisingly strong and righteous character. The second amulet on his arm showed Parvateshwar as a tiger, a very high-chosen tribe amongst the Kshatriyas. He nodded curtly at Shiva. No namaste. No elaborate bow of his proud head. Shiva, however, smiled warmly and greeted Parvateshwar with a formal namaste. "Please wait outside," Captain advised Parvateshwar, looking at Nandi. Before Nandi could respond, however, Shiva cut in. "My apologies. But is it all right if Nandi stays here with me? He has been my constant companion since I left my homeland and has become a dear and trusted friend." "Of course he may," replied Daksha. "Your Highness, It is not appropriate for a captain to be witness to this discussion, said Parvates4_ in any case. His service rules clearly state that he can only escort a guest into the Emperor's pre-semi and not stay there while a matter of state is discussed. Oh, relax, Parvates4_, you take your service rules too seriously sometimes. Tumming to Shiva, Daksha continued, if it is all right with you, may we see your neck now? Nandi slid behind Shiva to untie the cravat. Seeing the beads aimed on the cravat to convey the impression that the throat was covered for religious reasons, Daksha smiled and whispered, good idea. Even as the cravat came off, both Daksha and Kanakala moved in close to inspect Shiva's throat. Parvates4 did not step forward but strained his neck slightly in order to get a better look. Daksha and Kanakala were clearly stunned by what they saw. Daksha reached out and lightly touched Shiva's throat in awe. The color emerges from within. There is no dye. It is real. Daksha and Kanakala glanced at each other, tears glistening in their astounded eyes. Kanakala folded her hands into a namaste and began mumbling a chant under her breath. Daksha looked up at Shilpa's face, trying desperately to suppress the ecstasy that coursed through his insides. With a controlled smile, the Emperor of Meluha said, I hope we have not done anything to cause you any discomfort since your arrival. Meluha_. Despite Daksha's controlled reaction, Shiva could see that both the Emperor as well as his Prime Minister were taken aback by his blue throat. Just how important is this blood, blue bwat for the Melabor? None at all, Your Highness, replied Shiva as he tied the cravat back around his neck. In fact, my tribe and I have been delighted by the hospitality that we have received here. I'm happy about that, smiled Daksha, bowing his head politely. You may want to rest a bit and we could talk in greater detail tomorrow. Would you like to shift your residence to the royal citadel? It is rumored that the quarters here are a little more comfortable. That is a very kind offer, Your Highness. Daksha turned to Nandi and asked, Captain, what did you say your name was? My name is Nandi, Your Highness. You two are welcome to stay here. Make sure that you take good care of our honored guest. Kanakala, please make all the arrangements. Yes, Your Highness. Kanakala gestured towards one of her aides, who escorted Shiva and Nandi out of the royal office. As Shiva exited the room, Daksha went down on his haunches with great ceremony and touched his head to the ground on which Shiva had just stood. He mumbled a soft prayer and then stood up to look at Kanakala with tears in his eyes. Kanakala's eyes, however, betrayed impatience and a touch of anger. I don't understand, Your Highness, glared Kanakala_. The blue mark was genuine. Why did you not tell him? What did you expect me to do? Cried a surprised Daksha. This is his second day in Devajayari_. You want me to just accost him and tell him that he is the Neelkanth, our savior? That he is destined to solve all our problems? Well, if he has a blue throat, then he is the Neelkanth, isn't he? And if he is the Neelkanth, then he is our savior. He has to accept his destiny. An exasperated Parvates4 interjected. I can't believe that we are talking like this. We are Meluhans. We are the Surivanshis. We have created the greatest civilization ever known to man. Are we to believe that an unskilled, uneducated barbarian is to be our savior? Just because he has a blue throat? That is what the legend says, Parvates4 countered. Kanakala_. Daksha interrupted both his ministers. Parvates4, I believe in the legend. My people believe in the legend. The Neelkanth has chosen my reign to make his appearance. He will transform all of India in line with the ideals of Meluha, a land of truth, duty and honor. His leadership can help us end the Chandravanshi crisis once and for all. All the agonies they now inflict upon us will be over, from the terrorist attacks to the shortage of sumras to the killing of the Saraswati_. Then why delay telling him, Your Highness? Asked Kanakala_. The more days we waste, the weaker becomes the resolve of our people. You are of the terrorist attack just a few days back in a village not far from Hariupa_. As our response becomes weak, our enemies become bolder, Your Highness. We must inform the Lord quickly and announce his arrival to our people. It will give us the strength to fight our cruel enemies. I will tell him. But I am trying to be more far-sighted than you. So far our empire has only faced the morale-sapping influence of fraudulent Neelkanths. Imagine the consequences if people were to discover that the true Neelkanth has arrived but refuses to stand by us. First we must be sure that he is willing to accept his destiny, only then will we announce his arrival to our people. And I think that the best way to convince him is to share the whole truth with him. Once he sees the unfamous of the attacks we face, he will fight with us to destroy evil. If that takes time, so be it. We have waited for centuries for the Neelkanth. A few more weeks will not destroy us. Chapter 5 Tribe of Brahma. Shiva was walking in the verdant gardens of the royal guest house. His belongings were being moved into the royal guest house by Nandi along with an efficient aide of Kanakala. Shiva sat down on a comfortable bench overlooking a bed of red and white roses. The cool breeze in the open gardens brought a smile to his face. It was early afternoon and the garden was deserted. Shiva's thoughts kept going back to the conversation he had had with the emperor in the morning. Despite Daksha's controlled reaction, Shiva could understand that his blue throat was of great significance to the Meluhans, even to the emperor. It meant that the legend of the Neelkanth, whatever it was not restricted to some small sect in Kashmir. If the emperor himself took it so seriously, all of Meluha must need the help of the Neelkanth. But what the bloody hell do they want help for? They are so much more advanced than we are. His thoughts were interrupted by the sounds of a dhol, an instrument, and some gungvos, which were anklets worn by dancers. Someone seemed to be practicing in the garden. A hedge separated the dance pavilion from the rest of the garden. Shiva, himself a passionate dancer, would normally have stepped in to move to the rhythm of the Irat, but his mind was preoccupied. Some words floated in from the group that was dancing. "No, my lady, you must let yourself go," said a distinguished male voice. "It's not a chore that you have to do. Enjoy the dance. You are trying too hard to remember all the steps rather than letting the emotion of the dance flow through you." Then a lady's voice interjected. "My lady, Guruji is right, you are dancing correctly, but not enjoying it. The concentration shows on your face. You have to relax a bit. Let me get the steps right, then I can learn to enjoy them." The last voice made Shiva's hair stand up on end. It was her. It was Sati. He quickly got up and followed the sound of the voices. Coming up from behind the hedge, he saw Sati dancing on a small platform. She had her hands raised rigidly to her sides as she enacted the various movements of the dance. She danced in keeping with the steps, first to the left and then to the right. She moved her shapely hips to the side and placed her hands precisely on her waist, to convey the of the dance. He was mesmerized once again. However, he did notice that though Sati's steps were right, the Garite had a pedant. She was moving in a mechanical manner. The uninhibited surrender that is characteristic of a natural dancer was absent. The varying emotions of bliss and anger in the story being told were missing in her movements. Also, unlike a proficient dancer, Sati wasn't using the entire platform. Her steps were small, which kept her movements restricted to the center. The dance teacher sat facing her and playing on a dhol to give Sati her beats. Her companion Kritika sat to the right. It was the dance teacher who noticed Shiva first and immediately stood up. Sati and Kritika turned around as well and were clearly astonished to find Shiva standing in front of them. Unlike Sati, Kritika could not control her surprise and blurted out, "Shiva." Sati, in her characteristic composed and restrained manner, asked sincerely, "Is everything all right, Shiva? Do you need my help? How how's you be? One mistio. Don't you ever smile?" Shiva continued to stare at Sati, the words running through his mind, not on his lips. A smiling Kritika looked at Sati for her reaction. An even more serious Sati repeated, very politely, "Can I help you with something, Shiva?" "No, no, I don't need any help," replied Shiva as reality seemed to enter his consciousness once again. "I just happened to be in the area and I heard your dancing. I mean your conversation. Your dance steps were not loud enough to be heard. You were dancing very accurately. Actually, technically it was all." Kritika interjected. "You know a bit about dancing, do you?" "Oh, not much. Just a little," said Shiva to Kritika with a smile, before coming rapidly back to Sati. "My apologies, Sati, but Gurvi is right, you were being far too methodical. As they say in the land that I come from, the Madras and the Kayas were all technically correct. But the bhav or emotion was missing. And a dance without bhav is like a body without a soul. When the emotions of the dancer participate, she would not even need to remember the steps. The steps come to you. The bhav is something that you cannot learn. It comes to you if you can create the space in your heart for it." Sati listened patiently to Shiva without saying a word. Her eyebrows were raised slightly as the barbarian spoke. How could he know more than a Surivanshi about dancing? But she reminded herself that he had saved her life. She was duty-bound to honor him. Kritika, however, took offense at this caste unmarked foreigner pretending that he knew more about dancing than her mistress. She glowered at Shiva. "You dare to think that you know more than one of the best dancers in the realm?" Shiva gathered that he may have caused some offense. He turned to Sati in all seriousness. "I am terribly sorry. I didn't mean to insult you in any way. Sometimes I just keep talking without realizing what I am saying." "No, no," replied Sati. "You did not insult me. Perhaps you are right, I don't feel the essence of the dance as much as I should. But I am sure that with Guru% guidance, I will pick it up in due course." Seizing his chance to impress Sati, Shiva said, "If it is all right with you, may I perform the dance? I am sure that I am not as technically correct as you. But perhaps, there may be thing in the sentiment that will guide me through the correct steps. Some that was well put." "She can so no." Sati looked surprised. This was unexpected. Okay," she managed to say. A delighted Shiva immediately moved to the center of the stage. He took off the angvastram covering his upper body and tossed it aside. Kritika 3's anger at the perceived insult to her mistress was quickly forgotten as she beheld Shiva's rippling physique. Sati, though, began to wonder how Shiva would bend such a muscular body into the contortions that were required of this dance. Flexibility was usually sacrificed by a human body at the altar of strength. Playing lightly on his toll, the Gurvi asked Shiva, "What beat are you comfortable with, young man?" Shiva folded his hands into a namast, bent low and said, "Gurut, could you just give me a minute please? I need to prepare for the dance." Dancing was something Shiva was as accomplished in as warfare. Facing east, he closed his eyes and bowed his head slightly. Then he went down on his knees and reverentially touched the ground with his head. Standing up, he thumbed his right, then he raised his left leg off the floor in a graceful arching movement till the foot was above knee height, as he bent his right knee slightly to balance himself. His left foot bisected the angle between his right foot and his face. A calm breeze provided relief to the silence that enveloped the audience. Enraptured, the Guruji, Sati and Kritika gazed at Shiva with amazement. They did not understand what he was doing but could feel the energy that Shiva's stance was emanating. Shiva raised both his arms in an elegant circular movement to the sides to bring them in line with his shoulder. His right hand was holding an imaginary damru, a small, handheld percussion instrument. His left hand was open with its palm facing upward, almost like it was receiving some divine energy. He held this pose for some time. His glocksving face indicated that Shiva was withdrawing into his inner world. His right hand then moved effortless forward, almost as if it had a mind of its own. Its palm was now open and facing the audience. Somehow, the posture seemed to convey a feeling of protectiveness to a very surprised Sati. Almost languidly, his left arm glided at shoulder height and came to rest with the palm facing downwards and pointing at the left foot. Shiva held this pose for some time, and then began the dance. Sati stared in wonder at Shiva. He was performing the same steps as her. Yet it looked like a completely different dance. His lyrical hand movements graced the mystical motion of his body. How could a body this muscular also be so flexible? The Guruji tried helplessly to get his dhol to give Shiva the beats. But clearly that wasn't necessary, as it was Shiva's feet which were leading the beat for the dhol. The dance conveyed the various emotions of a woman. In the beginning it conveyed her feelings of joy and lust as she cavorted with her husband. The next emotion was anger and pain at the treacherous killing of her mate. Despite his rough masculine body, Shiva managed to convey the tender yet strong emotions of a grieving woman. Shiva's eyes were open, but the audience realized that he was oblivious to them. Shiva was in his own world. He did not dance for the audience. He did not dance for appreciation. He did not dance for the music. He danced only for himself. In fact, it almost seemed like his dance was guided by a celestial force. Sati realized that Shiva was right. He had opened himself and the dance had come to him. After what seemed like an eternity, the dance came to an end. With Shiva's eyes firmly shut, he held the final pose for a long time. As the glow slowly left him, it was almost as if he was returning to this world. Shiva gradually opened his eyes to find Sati, Kritika and the Goi gaping at him. Wonder-struck, the Guruji was the first to find his voice. "Who are you?" "I am Shiva." "No, no. Not the body. I meant, who are you?" Shiva crooked his eyes together in a frown and repeated, "I am Shiva Garite. May I ask a question?" asked Sati. "Of course you may." Turning to Shiva, Sati asked, "What was that you did for the dance? Was it some kind of preparatory step?" "Yes. It's called the Netarji pose. The pose of the Lord of Dance, the Netarji pose." "What does it do?" "It aligned my energy to the universal energy so that the dance emerges on its own." "I don't understand." "Well, it's like this. Amongst our people, we believe that everything in the world is a carrier of Shakti, or the plants, animals, objects, our bodies. Everything carries and transmits energy. But the biggest carrier of energy that we are physically in touch with is Mother Earth herself, the ground that we walk on." "What does that have to do with your dance?" "You need energy for everything that you do. You have to source the energy from around you. It comes from people, from objects, from Mother Earth herself. You have to ask for it respectfully. And your Netaraj pose helps you to access any energy that you want," asked the Guruji. "It depends on what I want the energy for. The Netarji pose helps me to ask respectfully for energy for a dance that wants to come to me. If I wanted the energy for a thought to come to me, I would have to sit cross-legged and meditate." "It seems that the energy favors you, young man," said the Guruji. "You are the Netarji, the Lord of Dance." "Oh no," exclaimed Shiva, "I am just a medium for the boundless Netaraj energy." "Anyone can be the medium." "Well, then you are a particularly efficient medium, young man," said the Goi. Tumming to Sati, he said, "You don't need me if you have a fiend like him, my child. If you want to be taught by Shiva, it would be my honor to excuse myself." Shiva looked at Sati expectantly. This had gone much better than he expected. "So yes, damn it." Sati, however, seemed to withdraw into herself. Shiva was startled to see the first signs of vulnerability in this woman. She bowed her head, an act which did not suit her proud bearing, and whispered softly, "I mean no disrespect to anyone, but perhaps I do not have the skills to receive training of this level." "But you do have the skill," argued Shiva. "You have the bearing. You have the heart. You can very easily reach that level. Sati looked up at Shiva, her eyes showing just the slightest hint of dampness. The profound sadness they conveyed took Shiva aback. What the hell is going on? I am very far from any level, Shiva mumbled Sati. As she said that, Sati found the strength to control herself again. The politely proud manner returned to her face. The mask was back. It is time for my puja. With your permission, Guruji, I must leave. She tumbled towards Shiva. It was a pleasure meeting you again, Shiva. Before Shiva could respond, Sati tumbled quickly and left, followed by Kritika _ the Guruji continued to stare at a flummoxed Shiva. At length, he bent low with a formal namaste towards Shiva and said, "It has been my life's honor to see you dance." Then he too tumbled and left. Shiva was left wondering about the inscrutable ways of the Meluhans _ late in the morning the next day. Shiva and Nandi entered the private royal office to find Daksha, Parvateshwar and Kanakala for them. A surprised Shiva said, "See, I am sorry, Your Highness. I thought we were to meet 4 hours into the second prahar _ I hope I haven't kept you waiting." Daksha, who had stood up with a formal namaste, bowed low and said, "No, my lord. You don't need to apologize. We came in early so that we wouldn't keep you waiting. It was our honor to wait for you." Parvateshwar rolled his eyes at the extreme subservience that his emperor, the ruler of the greatest civilization ever established, showed towards this barbarian. Shiva, controlling his extreme surprise at being referred to as the Lord by the emperor, bowed low towards Daksha with a namaste and sat down. "My lord, before I start telling you about the legend of the Nilkanth, do you have any questions that you would like to ask?" enquired Daksha. The most obvious question came to Shiva's mind: why be Hoblake's name is my blessed blue throat so important? But his instincts told him that though this appeared to be the most obvious question, it could not be answered unless he understood more about the society of Meluha itself. "It may sound like an unusual question, Your Highness," said Shiva. "But may I ask you what your age is?" Daksha looked at Kanakala with surprise. Then turning back towards Shiva with an amazed smile, he said, "You are exceptionally intelligent, my lord. You have asked the most pertinent question first." Crinkling his face into a conspiratorial grin, Daksha continued, "Last month I turned 184. Shiva was stunned. Daksha did not look a day older than 30 years. In fact, nobody in Meluha looked old. Except for the pandit that Shiva had met at the Brahma temple. "So Nandi is the Nabundayaj old? How can this be, Your Highness?" asked a flabbergasted Shiva. "What sorcery makes this possible?" "There is no sorcery at all, my lord," explained Daksha. "What makes this possible is the brilliance of our scientists who make a potion called the samras. The drink gods taking the samras at defined times not only postpones our death considerably, but it also allows us to live our entire lives as if we are in the prime of our youth, mentally and physically." "But what is the samras? Where did it come from? Who invented it?" "So many questions, my lord," smiled Daksha. "But I will try my best to answer them one by one. The samras was invented many thousands of years ago by one of the greatest Indian scientists that ever lived. His name was Lord Brahma. I think there is a temple dedicated to him that I visited on my way to Devagiri _ at a place named Meru." "Yes, my lord. That is where he is said to have lived and worked. In Brahma was a prolific inventor. But he never kept any of the benefits of his inventions to himself. He was always interested in ensuring that his inventions were used for the good of mankind. He realized early on that a potion as powerful as the samras could be misused by evil men. So he implemented an elaborate system of controls on its use." "What kind of controls?" "He did not give the samras freely to everyone," continued Daksha. "After conducting a rigorous countrywide survey, he chose a select group of adolescent boys of impeccable character, one from each of the 7 regions of ancient India. He chose pung boys so that they would live with him at his Gurukul and he could mold their character into becoming selfless helpers of society. The Sumra's medicine was administered only to these boys. Since these boys were practically given an additional life due to the Sumras, they came to be known as the Dviya or twice-born. The power of the Sumras combined with the tutelage of Lord Brahma, along with their other inventions, resulted in this select group achieving a reverential status never seen before. They honed their minds to achieve almost superhuman intelligence. The ancient Indian title for men of knowledge was Rishi. Since Lord Brahma's chosen men were 7 in number, they came to be known as the Saktrisbi and these Saktrishis used their skills for the good of society. Yes, Lord Brahma instituted strict rules of conduct for the Saktrishis they were not allowed to rule or to practice any trade, essentially anything that would have accrued personal gain. They had to use their skills to perform the task of priests, teachers, doctors, amongst other intellectual professions where they could use their powers to help society. They were not allowed to charge anything for their services and had to live on alms and donations from others. Tough service rules, joked Shiva with a slight wink at Parvateshwar. Parvateshwar did not respond, but Daksha, Kanakala and Nandi guffawed loudly. Shiva took a quick look at the prahar lamp by the window. It was almost the 3rd prahar the time that Sati would probably come out to dance. But they followed the code of conduct strictly, my lord, continued Daksha. Over time, as their responsibilities grew, the Saktrishis selected many more people to join their tribe. Their followers swore by the same code that the Saktrishis lived by and were also administered the Sumras. They devoted their lives to the pursuit of knowledge and for the well-being of society without asking for any material gain in return. It is for this reason that society accorded these people almost devotional respect. Over the ages the Saktrishis and their followers came to be known as the tribe of Brahma or simply, the Brahmins. But as with all good systems over long periods of time, some people stopped following the Brahmin code, right? Absolutely, my lord, answered Daksha, regretfully shaking his head at the familiar human frailty. As many millennia went by, some of the Brahmins forgot the strict code that Lord Brahma had enforced and the Saktrishis had propagated. They started misusing the awesome powers that the Sumras gave them. Some Brahmins started using their influence large number to conquer kingdoms and start ruling. Some Brahmins misused other inventions of the Saktrishis as well as Lord Brahma and accumulated fabulous wealth for themselves. And some of the Brahmins interjected Kanakala with a particular sense of horror, even rebelled against the Saktishiatradic Saktrishi inquired Shiva. They were the successors to the Saktishis, my lord, clarified Kanakala. When any of the Saktrishis knew that he was coming to the end of his mortal life, he would appoint a man from his Gurukul as his successor. This successor was treated for all practical purposes like the Saktrishi himself. So rebelling against the Saktrishi was like rebelling against the Saktrishis themselves. Yes, my lord, answered Kanakala. And the most worrying part of this corruption was that it was being led by the higher chosen tribe Brahmins like the eagles, peacocks and the swans. In fact, due to their higher status, these chosen tribes were actually not even allowed to work under the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, lest they get enticed by the lure of the material world. Yet they succumbed to the temptations of evil before anyone else. And chosen tribes like yours, the pigeons, remained loyal to the old code despite working for the Kshatriyas, asked Shiva. Yes, my lord, replied Kanakala, her chest puffed up with pride. The town bell sounded out the beginning of the 3rd prahar. All the people in the room, including Shiva, said a quick short prayer welcoming the new time chapter. Shiva had learned some of the ways of the Meluhans. A Shudra came in, reset the prahar lamp precisely and left as quietly as he came. Shiva reminded himself that any time now Sati would start her dance lessons in the garden. So what revolution caused the change, your highness? Asked Shiva, turning to Daksha. You, Parvateshwar and Nandi are Kshatriyas, and yet you clearly have taken the Sumras. In fact, I have seen people of all 4 castes in your empire look youthful and healthy. This means that the Sumras is now given to everybody. This change must have obviously happened due to a revolution, right? Yes, my lord. And the revolution was known as Indram. The greatest emperor that ever lived. Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ram, repeated everyone in the room. His ideas and leadership transformed the society of Meluha dramatically, continued Daksha. In fact, the course of history itself was radically altered. But before I continue with Lord Ram's tale, may I make a suggestion? Of course, Your Highness. It is into the third prahar now. Should we move to the dining room and have some lunch before continuing with this story? I think it is an excellent idea to have lunch, Your Highness, said Shiva. But may I be excused for some time? There is another pressing engagement that I have. Could we perhaps continue our conversation tomorrow if that is all with you? Kanakala's face fell immediately while Parvateshwar's was covered with a contemptuous grin. Daksha, however, kept a smiling face. Of course we could meet tomorrow, my lord. Will the beginning of the second hour of the second prahar be all right with you? Absolutely, Your Highness. My apologies for this inconvenience. Not at all, my lord, said an ever-smiling Daksha. Can one of my chariots take you to your destination? That's very kind of you, Your Highness. But I will go there by myself. My apologies once again. Bidding a namaste to everyone in the room, Shiva and Nandi walked out quickly. Gly at Daksha. The emperor just nodded his head, gesturing with Kanakala looked accusing his hands for calm. It's all right, we are meeting tomorrow, aren't we? Mind, we are running out of time, said Kanakala. The Nilkanth needs to accept his responsibilities immediately. Give him time, Kanakala. We have waited for so long, a few days is not going to cause a collapse. Parvateshwar got up suddenly, bowed low towards Daksha and said, with your permission, Your Highness, may I be excused? There are more practical matters that need my attention as compared to educating a barbarian. You will speak of him with respect, Parvateshwar growled. Kanakala. He is the Nilkanth. I will speak of him with respect only when he has aimed it through some real achievements, snarled Parvateshwar. I respect only achievements, nothing else. That is the fundamental rule of Indram. Only karma is important. Not your birth. Not your sex and certainly not the color of your throat. Our entire society is based on merit, or have you forgotten that? Enough, exclaimed Daksha. I respect the Nilkanth, that means everybody will respect him. Chapter 6 Vaikama, the carriers of bad fate. Nandi waited at a distance in the garden as he had been asked to, while Shiva stepped behind the hedge that separated the dance arena from the garden. The silent dance stage had already convinced Nandi that his lord would not find anybody there. However, Shiva was filled with hope and waited expectantly for Sati. After having waited for the larger part of an hour, Shiva realized that there would be no dance practice today. Deeply disappointed, he walked silently back to Nandi. Is there somebody I can help you find, my lord? Asked anemist Nandi. No, Nandi. Forget it. Trying to change the topic, Nandi said, my lord, you must are hungry. Should we go back to the guest house and eat? No, I'd like to see a little more of the city, said Shiva, hoping that fate would be kind to him and he would run into Sati in the town. Shall we go to one of the restaurants on the Rajat platform? That would be wonderful, smiled Nandi, who hated the simple Brahmin-influenced vegetarian food served at the royal guest house. He missed the spicy meats that were served in rough Kshatriya restaurants. Yes, what is it, Parvateshwar? Asked Daksha. Mind, I am sorry about the sudden meeting. But I've just received some disturbing news which I must share with you in private. Well, what is it? Shiva is already causing trouble. What have you got against the Nilkanth? Groaned Daksha, rolling his eyes in disapproval. Why can't you believe that the Nilkanth has come to save us? This has nothing to do with my views on Shiva, my lord. If you will please listen to what I have to say. Chinadwai saw Shiva in the gardens yesterday. Chinadwaj is here already. Yes, your highness. His review with you has been fixed for the day after tomorrow. Anyway, so what did Chinadwal see? He is also sickeningly taken in by the Neelkanth, so I think we can safely assume that he doesn't have any prejudice. All right, I believe you. So what did he see the Neelkanth do? He saw Shiva dancing in the gardens, answered Parvateshwar. So. Is there a law banning dance that I am not aware of? Please let me continue, your highness. He was dancing while Sati watched in rapt attention. His interest suddenly aroused, Daksha leaned forward to ask, and Sati behaved correctly and left the moment Shiva tried to get too familiar. But Chinadwaj heard Shiva whisper something when Sati left. Well, what did he whisper? He whispered, Hoblake, help me get her. One will not ask for anything else ever again. Daksha appeared delighted. You mean the Neelkanth may actually be in love with my daughter? Your highness, you cannot forget the laws of the land, exclaimed a horrified Parvateshwar. You know that Sati cannot marry. If the Neelkanth decides to marry Sati, no law on earth can stop him. My lord, forgive me, but the rule of law is the very foundation of our civilization. That's what makes us who we are. Better than the Chandravanshis and the Nagas. Not even Lord Ram was above the law. Then how can this barbarian be considered so important? Don't you want Sati to be happy? Asked Daksha. She's also called Parvati for a reason, because she is your goddaughter. Don't you want her to find joy once again? I love Sati like the daughter I never had, your highness, said Parvateshwar, with a rare display of emotion in his eyes. I would do anything for her. Except break the law. That is the difference between you and me. For Sati's sake, I would not mind breaking any law. She is my daughter. My flesh and blood. She has suffered enough already. If I can find some way to make her happy, I will do it no matter what the consequences. Kshatriyas Shiva and Nandi tethered their horses in the parking lot next to the main Rajat platform market. Moving forward, Nandi guided Shiva towards one of his favorite restaurants. The inviting aroma of freshly meat brought forth a nostalgic hunger in Nandi that had not been satisfied in the past 2 days at the royal guest house. The owner, however, stopped Shiva at the entry. What's the matter, brother? Asked Nandi. I am deeply sorry, brothers. But I too am undergoing religious vows at this time, said the restaurant owner politely, pointing to the beads around his throat. And you know that one of the vows is that I cannot serve meat to fellow religious vow-keepers, Nandi blurted out in surprise, but who has taken religious? He was stopped by Shiva, who signaled downwards with his eyes at the bead-covered cravat around his throat. Nandi nodded and followed Shiva out of the restaurant. This is the time of the year for religious vows, my lord, explained Nandi. Why don't you wait on the side? There are some good restaurants on the street at the right. I will go and see if I can find a restaurant owner who has not taken his vows. Shiva nodded his assent. As Nandi hurried off, Shiva around the street. It was a busy market area with restaurants and shops spread out evenly. But despite the large number of people and the buzz of commerce, the street was not noisy. None of the shopkeepers stepped out to scream and advertise their wares. The customers spoke softly and in an unfailingly polite manner, even if they were bargaining. These wed-mannered idiots would not be able to conduct any business in our boisterous market. Shiva, lost in his observation of the strange practices of the Meluhans, did not hear the announcement of the town crier till he was almost right behind him. Procession of Vaikama women. Please move. A surprised Shiva turned to find a tall Meluhan Kshatriya looking down at him. Would you care to move aside, sir? A procession of Vaikama women. You will soon pass this way for their prayers. The crier's tone and demeanor was unquestionably courteous. But Shiva was under no illusions. The crier was not asking Shiva to move. He was telling him. Shiva stepped back to let the procession pass as Nandi touched him gently on his arm. "I have found a good restaurant, my lord," said an ecstatic Nandi. "It serves my favorite dishes. And the kitchen is open for yet another hour. A lot of food to stuff ourselves with." Shiva laughed out loud. "It's a wonder that just one restaurant can actually make enough food to satisfy your hunger." Nandi laughed along good-naturedly as Shiva patted his friend on the back. As they turned and walked into the lane, Shiva asked, "Who are Vaikama women?" "Vaikama people, my lord," said Nandi, sighing deeply, "are people who have been punished in this birth for the sins of their previous birth. Hence they have to live this life out with dignity and tolerate the present sufferings with grace. This is the only way they can wipe their karma clean of the sins of their previous births. Vaikama men have their own order of penance and women have their own order. 3. There is a procession of Vaikama women on the road we just left. Is their puja a part of the order?" asked Shiva. "Yes, my lord. There are many rules that the Vaikama women have to follow. They have to pray for forgiveness every month to Agni, the purifying fire god, through a specifically mandated puja. They are not allowed to marry since they may contaminate others with their bad fate. They are not allowed to touch any person who is not related to them or is not part of their daily life. There are many other conditions as well that I am not completely aware of. If you are interested, we could meet up with a pandit at the Agni temple later and he could tell you all about Vaikama people." "No, I am not interested in meeting the pandit right now," said Shiva with a smile. "He might just bore me with some very confusing and abstruse philosophies. But tell me one thing. Who decides that the Tikama people had committed sins in their previous birth?" "Their own karma, my lord," said Nandi, his eyes suggesting the obvious. "For example, if a woman gives birth to a stillborn child, why would she be punished thus unless she had committed some terrible sin in her previous birth? Or if a man suddenly contracts an incurable disease and gets paralyzed, why would it happen to him unless the universe was penalizing him for the sins of his previous life? That sounds pretty ridiculous to me. A woman could have given birth to a stillborn child simply because she did not take proper care while she was pregnant. Or it could just be a disease. How can anyone say that she is being punished for the sins of her previous birth?" Nandi, shocked by Shiva's statements, struggled to find words to respond. He was a Meluhan and deeply believed in the concept of karma being carried over many births. He mumbled softly, "It's the law, my lord." "Well, to be honest, it sounds like a rather unfair law to me." Nandi's crestfallen face showed that he was profoundly disappointed that Shiva did not understand such a fundamental concept of Meluha. But he also kept his own counsel for fear of opposing what Shiva said. After all, Shiva was his lord. Seeing a dejected Nandi, Shiva patted him gently on the back. "Nandi, that was just my opinion. If the law works for your people, I am sure there must be some logic to it. Your society might be a little strange at times, but it has some of the most honest and decent people I have ever met." As a smile returned almost instantly to Nandi's face, his whole being was stricken by his immediate problem. His debilitating hunger. He entered the restaurant like a man on a mission, with Shiva chuckling softly behind. A short distance away on the main road, the procession of Vaikama women walked silently on. They were all draped in long angvastrams which were dyed in the holy blue color. Their heads were bowed low in penitence, their puja thalis or pujaya plates full of offerings to Lord Agni. The normally quiet market street became almost deathly silent as the pitiful women lumbered by. At the center of the procession, unseen by Shiva, with her head bowed low, draped in a blue angvastram that covered her from head to toe, her face a picture of resigned dignity, trudged the forlorn figure of Sati. "So where were we, my lord?" said Daksha, as Shiva and Nandi settled down in his private office the next morning. We were about to discuss the changes that Lord Ram brought about, Your Highness. And how he defeated the rebellion of the renegade Brahmins, answered Shiva. That's right, said Daksha. Lord Ram did defeat the renegade Brahmins. But in his view, the core problem ran deeper. It wasn't just a matter of some Brahmins not following the code. There was a conflict between a person's natural karma and what society forced him to. I don't understand, Your Highness. Let me explain. Do you know what was the essential problem with the renegade Brahmins? Some of them wanted to be Kshatriyas and rule. Some of them wanted to be Vaishyas, make money and live a life of luxury. However, their birth confined them to being Brahmins. 3 But I thought that Lord Brahma had decreed that people became Brahmins through a competitive examination process, said Shiva. That is true, my lord. But over time this process of selection lost its fairness. Children of Brahmins became Brahmins. Children of Kshatriyas became Kshatriyas, and so on. The formal system of selection soon ceased to exist. A father would ensure that his children got all the resources and support needed to grow up and become a member of his own caste. So the caste system became rigid. Did that also mean that there could have been a person talented enough to be a Brahmin, but if he was born to Shudra parents, he would not get the opportunity to become a Brahmin? Asked Shiva. Yes, Shiva, said Parvateshwar, speaking for the first time to Shiva. He noticed that Parvateshwar did not fawn all over him and call him Lord. In Lord Ram's view, any society that conducted itself on any principle besides merit could not be stable. He believed that a person's caste should be determined on that person's karma not his birth. Not his sex no other consideration should interfere. That is nice in theory, Parvateshwar argued Shiva. But how do you ensure it in practice? If a child is born in a Brahmin family, he would get the upbringing and resources which would be different from that of a child born in a Shudra family. So this child would grow up to be a Brahmin even if he was less talented than the Shudra boy. Isn't this unfair to the child born in the Shudra family? Where is the Euro in this system? That was the genius of Lord Ram, Shiva smiled. Parvateshwar he was of course a brave general, a brilliant administrator and a fair judge. But his greatest legacy is the system he created to ensure that a person's karma is determined only by his abilities, nothing else. That system is what has made Meluha what it is, the greatest nation in history. You can't underestimate the role that Samras has played, Parvateshwar said. Daksha, Lord Ram's greatest act was to provide the Samras to everyone. The elixir is what makes Meluhans the smartest people in the universe. The Samras is what has given us the ability to create this remarkable and near-perfect society. Begging your pardon, Your Highness, said Shiva before coming back to Parvateshwar. But what is the system that Lord Ram set up? The system is simple, said Parvateshwar. As we agreed, the best society is the one where a person's caste is decided purely by his abilities and karma, not by any other factor. Lord Ram created a practical system that ensured this. All children that are born in Meluha are compulsorily adopted by the empire. In order to ensure that this is done methodically, a great hospital city called Maika was built deep in the south, just north of the Narmada River. All pregnant women have to travel there for their delivery. Only pregnant women are allowed into the city. Nobody else. Nobody else. What about her husband, her parents? Asked Shiva. No, there are no exceptions to this rule except for one. This exception was voted in around 300 years ago. Husbands and parents of women of noble families were allowed to enter, answered Parvateshwar, his expression clearly showing that he violently disagreed with this corruption of Lord Ram's system. Then who takes care of the pregnant 7th man in Maika? The hospital staff. They are extremely well trained, continued Parvateshwar. Once the child is born, he or she is kept in Maika for a few weeks while the mother travels back to her own city. Without her child? Asked a clearly surprised Shiva. Yes, replied Parvati, with a slight frown as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. The child is then put into the Meluha Gurukul, a massive school created by the empire close to Maker. Every single child receives the benefit of the same education system. They grow up with all the resources of the empire available to them. Do they maintain records of the parents and their children? Of course they do. But the records are kept in utmost secrecy and are available only with the record keeper of Maker. That would mean that neither in the Gurukul nor in the rest of the empire would anybody know who the child's birth parents are, reasoned Shiva, as he worked out the implications of what he was hearing. So every child, regardless of whether he is born to a Brahmin or a Shudra, would get exactly the same treatment at the Gurukul. Yes, smiled Parvati. He was clearly proud of the system. As the children enter the age of adolescence, they are all given the samras. Thus every child has exactly the same opportunity to succeed. At the age of 15, when they have reached adulthood, all the children take a comprehensive examination. The results of this examination decide which varna or caste the child will be allocated to, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. Kanakala cut in. And then the children are given 1 more year's caste-specific training. They wear their varna color bands, white for Brahmins, red for Kshatriyas, green for Vaishyas and black for Shudras, and retreat to the respective caste schools to complete their education. So that's why your caste system is called the Vama system, said Shiva. Vama means color, right? Yes, Mayan, smiled Kanakala. You are very observant. With a withering look at Kanakala, Parvati added sarcastically, yes, that was a very difficult conclusion to draw. Ignoring the barb, Shiva asked, so what happens after that? When the children turn 16, they are allocated to applicant parents from their caste. For example, if some Brahmin parents have applied to adopt a child, one randomly chosen student from Maker, who has won the Brahmin caste in the examination, is allotted to them. Then the child grows up with these adopted parents as their own child. And society is perfect, marveled Shiva, as the simple brilliance of the system enveloped his mind. Each person is given a position in society based only on his own abilities. The efficiency and fairness of this system is astounding. Over time, my lord, interjected Daksha, we found the percentage of higher castes actually going up in the population. Which means that everybody in the world has the ability to excel. All it takes is for a child to be given a fair chance to succeed. Then the lower castes must have loved Lord Ram for this, asked Shiva. He gave them an actual chance to succeed. Yes, they did love him, answered Parvati, for they were his most loyal followers. Jai Shri Ram. But I guess not too many mothers would have been happy with this. I can't imagine a woman willingly giving up her child as SCH3N as he is born with no chance of meeting him ever again. But WS for the larger good, said Parvati, scowling at the seemingly stupid question. And in any case, every mother who wants an offspring can apply for one and be allocated a child who suits her position and dreams. Nothing can be worse for a mother than having a child who does not measure up to her expectations. Shiva frowned at explanation, but let the argument pass. I can also imagine that many of the upper castes like the Brahmins would have been unhappy with Lord Ram. After all, they lost their stranglehold on power. Yes, added Daksha. Many upper castes did oppose Lord Ram's reforms. Not just Brahmins, but even Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Lord Ram fought a great battle to defeat them. Those from among the vanquished who survived are the Chandravanshis we see today. So your differences go that far back? Yes, said Daksha. The Chandravanshis are corrupt and disgusting people. No morals. No ethics. They are the source of all our problems. Some of us believe that Lord Ram was too kind. He should have completely destroyed them. But he forgave them and let them live. In fact, We have to face the mortification of seeing the Chandravanshis rule over Lord Ram's birthplace Ayodhya. Before Shiva could react to this information, the bell of the new Prahar was rung. Everyone said a quick prayer to welcome the subsequent time chapter. Shiva immediately looked towards the window. A look of expectancy appeared on his face. Daksha smiled as he observed Shiva's expression. We could break for lunch now, my lord, but if you have another engagement you would like to attend, we could continue. Tomorrow_Parvateshwar glared at Daksha disapprovingly. He knew exactly what the emperor was trying to do. That would be nice, your highness, smiled Shiva. Is my face such a giveaway? Yes, it is, my lord. But that is a gift you have. Nothing is prized more than honesty in Meluha. Why don't you leave for your engagement and we could convene here again tomorrow morning? Thanking Daksha profusely, Shiva left the room with Nandi in tow. Shiva approached the hedge with excitement and trepidation. Scarce had he heard the beat of the dhol emanating from the direction of the garden, he dispatched Nandi to the guest house for lunch. He wanted to be alone. He let out a deep sigh of ecstasy as he crept up behind the hedge to find Sati practicing under the eye of the Guruji and Kritika_ISOGCH3D. To see you again, Shiva said the Gurvi as he stood up with a formal namast. The pleasure is all mine, Guruji, said Shiva, as he earned down to touch the Guriti's feet as a sign of respect. Sati stood silently at a distance with her gaze on the Kritika, said enthusiastically, I just couldn't get your dance out of my mind. Shiva blushed at the compliment. Oh, it wasn't all that good. Now you're fishing for compliments, teased Kritika_. I was wondering if we could start off where we left the last time, said Shiva, tumming towards Sati. I don't think I have to be your teacher or anything like that, I just wanted to see you dance. Sati felt her strange discomfort returning once again. What was it about Shiva that made her feel that she breaking the law when she spoke to him? She was allowed to talk to men as long as she kept a respectable distance. Why should she feel guilty? I will try my best, said Sati formally. It would be enriching to hear your views on how I can improve myself. I really do respect you for your dancing skills. Respect? Why respect? Why not love? Shiva smiled politely. He knew instinctively that saying anything at this point of time wouldn't spoil the moment. Sati took a deep breath, girded her angvastram around her waist and committed herself to the Nataraj pose. Shiva smiled as he felt Mother Earth project her Shakti, her energy, into Sati. Energized by the earth she stood upon, Sati began her dance. And she had really improved. The emotions seemed to course through her. She had always been technically good, but the passion elevated her dance to the next level. Shiva felt a dreamy sense of unreality overcome him again. Sati maintained a magnetic hold over him as she moved her lithe body with the dance steps. For some moments, Shiva imagined that he was the man that Sati was longing for in her dance. When she finally came to a stop, the audience spontaneously applauded. That was the best I have ever seen you dance, said the Gun_Yeeks with pride. Thank you, Guruji, said Sati as she bowed. Then she looked expectantly at Shiva. It was fantastic, exclaimed Shiva. Absolutely fabulous. Didn't I tell you that you had it in? I thought that I didn't get it exactly right at the moment of attack, said Sati critically. You're being too hard on yourself, consoled Shiva. That was just a slight error. It happened only because you missed out on holding one angle at your elbow. That made your next move a little odd. Rising swiftly to his feet, Shiva continued, see, I'll show you. He walked quickly towards Sati and touched her elbow to move it to the correct angle. Sati immediately recoiled in horror as there was a gasp from the Gurvi as well as Kritika. Shiva instantly realized that something terrible had happened. I am sorry, said Shiva, with a look of sincere regret. I was just trying to show you where your elbow should be. Sati continued to stare at Shiva, stunned into immobility. The Gun_2 was the first to recover his wits and realize that Shiva must undergo the purification ceremony. Go to your pandit, Shiva. Tell him you need a Shuddikaran. Go before the day is over. What? What is a Shuddikaran? Why would I need it? Please go for a Shuddikaran, Shiva said Sati, as tears broke through her proud eyes. See, I would never be able to forgive myself if something were to happen to you. Nothing will happen to me. Look, I am really sorry if I have broken some rule by touching you. I will not do it again. Please not make a big deal of this. It is a big deal, shouted Sati. The violence of Sati's reaction threw Shiva off balance. Why the hell is simple thing being blown complete out of proportion? Kritika came up close to Sati while being careful not to touch her, and whispered, "We should go back home, my lady." "No. No. Please stay," pleaded Shiva. "I won't touch you I promise." With a look of hopeless despair, Sati turned to leave, followed by Kritika and Guruji at the edge of the hedge. She turned around and beseeched Shiva once again, "Please go for your Shuddikaran before nightfall." Please. At the look of uncomprehending mutiny on Shiva's face, the Gurite advised, "Listen to her, Shiva. She speaks for your own good." "What BLCH3DY nonsense," yelled Shiva as his disturbed thoughts finally broke through his desperate efforts at silent acceptance. He was lying in his bedroom at the royal guest house. He had not undergone the Shuddikaran. He had not even bothered to find out what the ceremony was. Why would I need to be puhashed for touching Sati? I want to spend all my remainingers touching her in either possible way. One gobji to keep on undergoing a Shuddikaran every do. Ridiculous. Just then a troubling thought entered Shiva's mind. Is it because of me? Am I not allowed to touch her because I am caste unmarked? A infoi barbarian. No. That can't be true, whispered Shiva to himself. Sati doesn't think like that. She is a good woman. But what fits true? If she knows that I am the Neelkanth,